Oh, did this thing change? Isn't it supposed to show all of our windows at once? Like this thing looks weird. Let me go to the gallery. Everybody can be seen now, right? That seems better. How's it going, everybody? I'm Andreas. Welcome to Synctank. Uh, David Plate, MK Ultrasound, creator of Syncflix, is with us tonight. Eddie Lynn downstairs with the creations that you might have seen all over the media. And then Deep Share Podcast, Andy. How you guys doing? What's up?
What's up, Andreas?
Hey. And then William Ramsey, who is our guest tonight, who's written a number of interesting books on death cults, Aleister Crowley, the occult. Maybe you've got a better way of introducing yourself. I met you through my friend Jordan in the Divulgence podcast when we talked about Epstein and the Maxwells, which you were, deeply investigating at the time. Well, I think you're muted. I better ask to unmute. My bad. I think I did that when we did the intro.
It's okay. I think I just was like, I grew up on TV news, so I was really curious about things that were under the surface. So I think a lot of my books and even my research into Epstein, I never wrote a book, but I definitely followed that in great detail. We're really trying to look into kind of the sub rosa underground things that really, I think that the most negative influences in our culture and society come from these kind of secret groups and secret ideas or things that are ideologies and concepts that are largely hidden that I didn't know about. So I think that if you want to encompass all of my books or really all my research, that's what it's about. It really started from me screaming at the other kind of pseudo journalists. They're really, a lot of these journalists are totally fake. They're really political party hacks, but screaming at them going, why aren't you guys going to tell this aspect of the story? Even Epstein's a great example because nobody really followed up on the Johns, the people who were using his network. Nobody found out how he made $500 million. So there's still a lot to know about that whole situation. But that's probably why I got educated. I was in DC for 3 years. I knew that very shortly when I was in DC, I did not want to live my life there. But so I'd seen some things that from aspects that maybe other people didn't know about. But I didn't come from, I was definitely a state school kid. I was not private school or that type of background, from California. And I was born in Nebraska. So I think that my sensibilities were much more egalitarian in looking at it, not from somebody who had, came from family wealth or something like that.
Yeah.
That's
and also
really
not from like satanic daycares in Santa Cruz. Like growing up, it's adjacent and social order. I thought one of the things that was funny was like I mentioned that we were going to get you on the show and we're like, what are we going to talk about? Because there's so many things that we can go into. But then one of the guests who is he's not right here, the second Giant, he was driving by and he saw this in front of him immediately after we mentioned Crowley. He's like, whoa, that's crazy. Like there's something that jumped out sort of and into the ideas for a show called Synctank about this guy. And it's an interesting character. I mean, so many people talk about Crowley like he's the devil, right? His mom called him the devil and the beast, but that makes more sense when you know that he was part of, what is that group again called? The
Order of the Golden Dawn.
No, before that, his parents
Plymouth Brethren, that's right.
Yeah, it's very footloose, his background, right? Because he's from Nebraska-esque, like he's from England, 50s kind of 1800s style reality.
He was born in 1875, but he was actually in a subset of the Plymouth Brethren known as the Exclusive Brethren. So they were even more kind of puritanical.
They were the only ones going to heaven, right?
No dancing.
That type of thing, yeah. Bible all day. So he had a very shrill, rigid life. He only went to Plymouth Brethren schools, only could associate with those types of people. Everybody else was lesser. His dad was kind of a pamphleteer, Christian pamphleteer.
And no meat and no pudding, right? Like all against all the excesses, which probably made him sickly as a kid. Because he didn't have.
It reminds me of the wall, right? How can you have your pudding if you don't eat your meat, right? I think that's what you're referencing. But I think he did have that life. I think he did have that lifestyle. The British kind of elite schools, even the lesser schools, were like brutal, like jails. Like you get beat up and screamed at and humiliated, and there's bullying and it's like a nightmare. And then some of that takes place here in the States too, but a lot of sexual abuse. So Crowley came into that. He almost died from the abuse. Like his family took him out of those schools because he literally was on the brink of death and they had to bring him back to his health. They actually recommended for him to get sunshine and fresh air. So they sent him to do kind of rock climbing. That's really where his three things that he was passionate about in his life were rock climbing, magic, and
Like
poetry.
rock climbing and magic and poetry.
Yeah, he made it to K2, right? He was climbing Himalayas.
That's correct.
But I didn't know
they called them different names back then. It was Chogo-ri and Kanchenjunga. So those were how those mountains were known when he was climbing them at the early turn of the century.
Yeah, but from all accounts, a total prick, right? From everyone ever.
Yeah,
just kind of a jerk, you know.
Very selfish, totally egocentric. Believed that he was a true kind of like classist in a very class conscious society. You can see a lot of that now with the coronation of King Charles III. But I think that he was at the apex of the British Empire. So that's where and he was very wealthy. So when his mom passed away, he always had enough money. But when his mom passed away, he inherited money like the equivalency of like $20 million today.
He was most of it on publishing his own book, self-publishing, and then towards the end of his life, he had blown through his inheritance, and he was using women for his cognac and cigars because he only had the best, even up to the end, even when he didn't have much, you know.
Right, but starting out with he was gonna die, right? There's this thing, he was dying of some sickness. He went to his uncle, and then they're like, well, let's get him all kinds of puddings and foods and prostitutes with 15 because he's probably gonna die anyway. And something, at 11, his father died of tongue cancer, which also doesn't bode well for believing what your father said, probably, or something to that effect. But
hung by the tongue,
But I kind of wanted to.
Crowley stated in his biography, he brought prostitutes through the back door of the way a milkman dropped off the milk.
Was the thing with his housekeeper? So he came on to his housekeeper as a kid,
right?
And then he told ahead of time the tobacco guy, the guy at the store, that if anyone asks if I came in to buy tobacco from you, that you say yes. And then when the mother asked him about the incident with the housekeeper after she told on him, he said, no, that didn't happen. I was actually out buying tobacco, because he knew that was the lesser evil. So he could get away with the one, but so it's that kind of level of manipulation.
I'd heard a more, I'd heard a different version, but maybe it's a later story, is that after he came home from his getting better and realized that some sort of existentialism of nutrition was actually okay, and you shouldn't just be some Brahmanist, beggared or something, that his mother said, you're the beast, and you're the devil, you've become the devil, what have they done with my son? And so he went off, and a lot of things he ended up doing, he's like, well, maybe, voodoo prostitutes will like make me healthy again or something, which didn't work. He got a lot of gonorrhea, but he did take the mother's assistant or maid, and he copulated on the mother's bed with the maid in order to upset.
Another thing, yeah.
The story goes, right, that his mother had her discredited, humiliated, turned her into no other course than to be a prostitute, and then eventually she was the first murdered by Jack the Ripper, according to Crowley.
He kind of had a kill the mother, fuck the father kind of thing going on, I think.
Right, but
he certainly didn't like his mother. He was more affectionate towards his father, so he grew to not like his mother and his uncle. So he wrote, and you can read about, like, he has a very personal discussion about his family life in the intro to a book called The World's Tragedy. And that is, the world's tragedy to Crowley was Jesus Christ. But he talks about the intro and about talking about Jesus all the time, cold boiled Jesus, Crowley calls it. And then he calls for sodomy. And then the whole world's tragedy is kind of like all these things that they say about Christ. He includes that Mary was impregnated by Pantera, the Roman soldier. So that's one of the old stories about where the real fatherhood of Christ is from. Mary gets raped. I mean, it just goes on and on. And then eventually at the end, Crowley is the world's hero. So Christ is gone. He goes off with his gay lover, John, and Crowley assumes the mantle of world teacher.
Do you find parts of like
Life of Brian, right?
Of what?
No, I'm just kind of humoring on the the Monty Python, but Life of Brian.
Oh, Life of Brian. Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty much the plot.
That's the thing, though, is like, do you guys like? I don't know. Like, I've probably read too much Crowley. I say I read 50 Crowley books, but that includes like pamphlets, like his pamphlet on hashish or something. But I'm counting Confessions as one book, so I feel like that's somehow justified. But but I have to say, like, a lot of his stuff is like, it's really funny. Like, he had like a crazy sense of humor.
He had a good sense of humor. He had a very dark sense of humor. He was known in his jokes and talking with people. And if you didn't know his background, you probably just saw him as kind of a dirty old jokester man. Like, if you saw him, I think later in his life, the effects of the drugs took a toll on his face. He had very dark black circles under his eyes, almost like a raccoon. And his tongue was dark. But I think maybe if you saw him when he was 50, you just thought he was like a strange older guy, because he was very well dressed and very well mannered, kind of almost like the prototype of the sophisticated older Satanist in Rosemary's Baby or something like that. You know?
I'm not that familiar with your work. I'm sorry. I want to ask, like, like that you can do that. There's a cross analysis with Confessions, the autohagiography, and that it's a surprisingly empirical book. Secret Agent 666, right. The Lusitania connection. And something I don't see from the author in that book is that he gives a lot of dates and a lot of times and a lot of the goings on there. And there seems to be some pretty uncanny correspondences that I picked up on when you look at the timings. If you go into Confessions and see so you'll have something that's relating to him sharing about this magical working. And then you have this whole espionage side that's obviously never really mentioned in Confessions. And so I don't know.
Crowley leaves traces of his espionage things. He knows specific names that you can look up from Confessions that were known now to be intelligence assets. And in Secret Agent 666, I've talked to that guy about his other book, which was it was the one about Russia and Wall Street. So the Russian Revolution on Wall Street. I can't remember his name offhand right now. But he's done a lot of great work. He's a great historian. I really respect him. And that Secret Agent 666, he actually, the author there confirmed that Crowley was an asset. So he actually went through some archives and had an archive statement.
Yeah, I found some interesting stuff on that, by the way. And this might be the weirdest transition, but I'll do it. I want to do King's coronation because I know you have thoughts on that. But just really quickly, because this weird rabbit hole was the Battle of Somme and a connection to A.A. Milne. So A.A. Milne also was part of whatever regiment. I think it's MI7. In A.A. Milne, his life, Anne Thwaite, she mentions Crowley and Milne's correlation in MI7B. So MI7B is the foreign and domestic propaganda, including press releases, concerns, or matters, where MI7A was censorship. MI7C was translation from 1917 for foreign visitors. MI7D, foreign press propaganda and review. So, and it's even associated here. So it's interesting because there's also this connection to pop culture with Crowley and this idea that, like, hey, we're not just doing Satanism, because everyone's like, oh, that guy's a Satanist. But, the Golden Dawn, they're into esoteric Gnosticism, right? Like the idea,
they're not Satanists.
You might call them heretics if you're super Christian about it, but they're not Satanists. But he is instead interested in doing these like magic rituals, right? So, I mean, Winnie the Pooh is all about this, right? I think where was the thing that we were talking about? The AA, for instance.
Astrum Argentum.
Right. And there's a number of questions if it's really, I mean, I assume probably Astrum Argentum here, Argentium Astrum. But there's been a couple of questions if it's Arcanium or Canarium or Angel in the Abyss or whatever. But I agree with the more likely alchemical route, because that again says he's not necessarily a Satanist, and he's even rejected Iwas, his guardian angel, right? At some point.
Crowley rejected Aiwas?
Yeah, at first he
No, I don't think he ever did. I think he was praying to Aiwas very frequently. I don't think he ever rejected him.
So I mean, when he first
that was the one he made a contact with inside the King's Chamber, right? In the pyramid.
Well, after that, right? But he was in Cairo in 1904.
So version I heard was Rose Kelly leaves her boyfriend, husband guy to go off with Crowley. They get up to Egypt. While there, she's told, "Hey, the spirits are telling me." The gods are telling me of Egypt, you're supposed to contact them. And he's like, you haven't even done a ritual. How the heck would they contact? Why would they? And so to test her, he goes to the, museum and says, hey, point out the god that told you that. And she goes to the face of Horus, which is the correct face of Horus, because she had mentioned whatever it was that connected to Horus. And it was article 666 of the
Which is
Museum
funny. That's
of
a
Cairo.
synchronicity. That's what
Exhibit 666, right?
Exhibit 666, right? So from there, he contacts, does the thing, is told he's going to be very useful, but then doesn't publish, doesn't want to listen, doesn't want to do what he's told because he feels like that'd be the same as being a Christian. It's just doing what you're told. And he says it's all about making your own choices and being a hedonist for like 10 years.
According to Crowley, he said that the book of the law, he just put it aside, that he didn't like run around and say, I have this book of law. He didn't understand it.
The laws for all was his commentary to that, which came out a long time after that. I don't know what the gap is there, but it should be a significant one.
Man, I mean, do you think then he was trying to hide it? Or I mean, because they're told it's for all.
He could have just made it up straight out of fiction. He was a fiction writer. He's really a master of prose. He could have just made up that entire story of the book of the law just to put himself at the very apex of the occult world, was what he wanted to do. And it's known that he was headed back to England. So he had gone to Cairo, then done a trip, I think either to India or China, and then it was coming back through Cairo when that happened. So he may have like tested it out, and I'm going to create this. However, there are strange things in there, and it's clear that he had read Nietzsche. Like the book of the law is very much influenced by Nietzsche's ideas. But
right, that's true.
It's really up to the person. I mean, you can go and look at, I include the original kind of writing of the book of the law in my documentary, Prophet of Evil. You can go to Vimeo and check it out. And there's very few emendations, any rewrites. There's a couple here and there. He X's out a page, but it's almost like automatic writing. And a lot of his writing was that he didn't really correct errata or go back and go reread, work on the same poem for a year or something like that. He wasn't that type.
What do you think about that call to challenge the first of the books, where it says leave the second part unchallenged? I
don't know, but I remember it's broken into 3 parts, right? So he was over 3 days that he supposedly received it from this being. It was over his shoulder, and it was dictated to him. I think it was April 11th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, I think, 1904.
Yes, that's correct.
But I don't know. I mean, you can go through, there's all kinds of references to 11s and be at them and, be very nasty. And there's all kinds of best moon is the blood, but blood is of the moon.
I have an outlandish theory I'd love to share, as long as we're talking about Liber L, is that this is far out, and I talked about it on the show recently, but like if you look at Jim Morrison's An American Prayer, the way that it was written, there's dashes every few lines, and I counted those dashes and I noticed that it fit perfectly in like to weave with the book of the law. So if you just go in a line and just start Jim Morrison's poem, it becomes like a commentary between the two of them that's like pretty exact, like in like call and response. Like there's things that get said that are really uncanny. And that idea that like that's a Kabbalistic tool, is that weaving. It's even related with like prayer. And then you have Jim Morrison's towards the end of his life, there was only 2 albums before he died that were compilation albums that were approved by him, and one of them was titled 13, which is kind of a reversal of the original Doors album where they're in the dark, and then in this one it's like Jim Morrison's walking away and they're in the light. And then in the back of the album it pictures a stone bust of Crowley's head with Jim Morrison's hands folded in prayer over it. And I have a theory that An American Prayer is actually a response as an attack to what Crowley invited in the Book of the Law by saying leave the second part unattacked. So he basically attacked the first book. So it's I can share it.
Morrison is very similar to Crowley. Heroin, drugs, sex, saw devil. I think Morrison said he saw the devil on a canal in Venice. So this is kind of like, and you see that in certain Crowley things when he's at in Chepaloo, where he's like, I saw Awas out on the rock. So he's constantly praying to Awas and stuff like that. And how deep the doors got. There's all kinds of dark references to. It's like Crowley's sacrament. If you listen to Peace Frog, if you can kind of just blood on the streets in the town of New Haven.
Right. And that's referring to, that ties back with the Indian thing. So Nietzsche had that thing where he saw his neighbor kill, I forget, was it a lamb? In a lightning storm. It was this big event in Nietzsche's childhood that he referenced throughout his life. It's it was his basis for Beyond Good and Evil, where he saw the murder of the animal without any malice. So it was just out of necessity, and like the treatment of it, and watching his neighbors, the son who was around his age watching this, and it was just So Morrison had the thing about the truck that was turned over. Is it true? Is it not true? Just like with Nietzsche, where he saw the dead Indians on the highway. So that's connected with the ghost song thing.
Well, he writes about it. He says the young child's fragile eggshell mind. So he's talking about it.
Right.
It really
and so the blood
right?
in the streets is that the idea that if we're built on a genocide, then energetically that's still integrated in. It's like The Shining when they say they built it on Indian burial ground and had to fend off Indian attacks, or poltergeist when they're like, you removed the headstones but you didn't move the bodies. So it's this treatment of America as kind of like being like that, where it's like we're
right. It's America is one big Shining. It's one big haunted Indian burial ground. That's all the United States is.
One big Shining.
That's beautifully put.
Be honest.
Well, let me pull this up really quick.
William,
go ahead.
I want to see if I can pick your brain on this. We just recently we have several failed launch of the Artemis, the NASA Artemis moon mission that's been ongoing. We might as well go into the number 93, which is the number of the Thelema, the religion he established. If you happen to notice the budget of the mission is $9.3 billion.
Wow.
And also the launch date was supposed to be September 3rd. So I'm just trying to see if you've been paying attention to the to the ritual that's unfolding with NASA.
Right.
And as you know, NASA is pretty much we can go down the path with Jack Parsons, his most devout student, and who established the space program, really, essentially.
Yeah, his most valued student.
Anyways, I just want to see.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of weird stuff going on with NASA. It's really kind of like an occult organization if you really keep looking at it. Especially, I think the moon landing was fake. Like, I used to kind of be on the fence. Now I know there's just no way they could do with the technology at the time.
Can I make a brief rant here? I have to.
Yeah.
This has been like, so I had like a 3-hour discussion with somebody. This is all obviously removed. Like, I had an experience and I'm sharing it with you and it's anecdotal, whatever. But like, I had a long talk with an old NASA employee who was like retired. And I worked my way into it and I qualified it as well as I could, trying not to be offensive about it, and I brought up like Kubrick. I have Kubrick tattooed on. I was just like, I had to ask him, and I was like, what do you think of that? And he said, well, I can't tell you about Apollo 11 because I wasn't a part of that mission, but I can tell you absolutely we did fake footage. We faked all kinds of things, like, and I was like, and he said, and I can tell you we absolutely did that, and I can tell you we absolutely went to the moon. And I was like, well, then why would you do that? And he said, PR. He was like, we had to sell this. We had to sell this to the public. It was like a product. He was like, so both things were existing at the same time. And also that there's like levels of clearance. There's like, it's like they say it's a civilian thing, but he's like, no, this is like a military thing. So he's like, we didn't know what we would find. We didn't want to just like expose whatever it was, because we were open to anything. They're that open-minded too. And that brings up the occult side of it, where you're like, we make fun of the conspiracy theorists, but the people themselves that are parts of those missions, like, they're totally open to whatever, You can see that from the Lear,
it's called compartmentalized. All those operations have little compartments, just like a big corporation. Everybody's kept from each other, doing their own little piece of it. So they don't see the big picture. I wouldn't, if we got there, I would just be happy. I don't really know what happened, but looking at all the evidence and the kind of technology they have, and I've read Dave McGowan's stuff, Wagging the Moon Doggy, and like when them bringing out the lunar lander is actually pretty funny. It's actually comical that they brought a whole lunar lander all the way and it worked perfectly. So
I like the way it looks too. It's pretty neat.
But yeah, the NASA, you can get into NASA. When Parsons was doing his rockets, he would recite Crowley's Hymn to Pan.
That's right.
Do that all the time.
This is the piece, right? So with Jim Morrison, I think we covered this with the Book of the Law versus an American Prayer on the Lizard King, and you've got I Crowley had manifest, Morrison celebration of the lizard, back and forth.
I like the idea of newt as a play on words. So it's like if you treat, I don't know how you the technical pronunciation, but it seems like the lizard newt connection. We discussed this because the King of Wands pictures the lizard by the king's side, and so it's the Lizard King, in the Rider deck. Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting. And he kind of played around with his words, wasn't he? Mojo Risen, Morrison or something like Jim Morrison, but like it was something like that. So that would be something Crowley would admire, these kind of like wordplay, word jumbles.
Totally. And there's a big distinction between a prayer and a law when it comes to the new eon and what it is. And so he kind of represented the hippie movement, which was supposed to be, in a lot of people's minds, kind of an extension of the Crowleyan philosophy. We see that with Led Zeppelin and the Beatles, and a lot of these people aren't just paying homage to him. They're like literally like kind of like he's the rock star philosophy or something. You know, you're the way you were speaking to him early on. It's like you could almost be describing rock stars in general, like just with that self-absorption and all of that, you know. When you come at it from a place of like that, you're calling down, calling in the archetype, so to speak, like in Greek tragedy. If you get into like talking about the Nietzschean thing with the birth of tragedy, like that was his first book. Like he wrote that in his 20s, you know, like, and what we see there is kind of these descriptions that are very, very, you can see Crowley in them, or he's like, you know, when you're playing a role on a stage, you're kind of like taking that archetype in. Like the whole Oedipus thing is that like that's Jupiter and Saturn in a sense. Like it's like you see aspects in Sophocles and the different Greek tragedies. You see these mythological elements kind of imbuing it. And so in Morrison's performance, you know, he incorporated all that. It was like a magical ritual, but I think it had a different is coming from a different place than say Liber Oz or something, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I'm open, but like he seems to be challenging Crowley's kind of arrogance and kind of making fun of it, while at the same time kind of embodying his own trip, you know, which is very much influenced by Colin Wilson's The Outsider, Wilhelm Reich's The Function of Orgasm, and Norman O'Brown's Life Against Death, which is pretty fundamental to like, you know, everything is context, you know, and Crowley read so much. And so you can see all over the place, just countless influences, you know, like with everything, whether we're talking about his poetry or his prose or whatever, you know.
Yeah, no doubt. He was supremely well read. I mean, he didn't ever have to work. Yeah. Like that's the thing that would distinguish Crowley from most other people's. Most people have to do a 9-to-5 type job, but he never had to. And you know, he had put some cocaine into that too, where you can go on long term.
I'm sure it was good coke too.
Full Milo Yiannopoulos, yeah. But let's circle into this. Like, let's bridge the gap to Led Zeppelin and Jim Morrison and Tavistock and all the British mind control by starting with him as a secret agent taking over the Hermetic Golden Dawn, right? Because he was a secret agent. He was supposed to infiltrate. He got in and took over the group as best he could, or, you know, brought a lot of people with him with he tried to take the Temple of the Adept. Is that right?
He was excommunicated from the Golden Dawn. And yeah, I always found this curious. Maybe you can enlighten me about it. How is it that when we see like Israel Regardie, kind of like Magic Without Tears, like he edited that. He edited a lot of Crowley books. And I got to wonder, it's like Crowley edited books from Eliphas Levi,
right.
You know, and it's like,
he didn't just think he was Eliphas Levi was Crowley's biggest influence, and Crowley believed he was the resurrection of Levi, who died when he was born 1860.
Right, but what's the justification for somebody that was at odds with Crowley editing his books after he died? Wasn't Magic Without Tears edited after his death? Like,
yeah, but Crowley had complex relations with all of his followers. They were always fighting and bickering. And I mean, Crowley just never, I don't think he really had any long-term relationships, but it's very strange. People would come into his life, but still respect him. So like, if you look at J.F.C. Fuller, for example, who wrote a book with Crowley, Star in the West, they were together. He learned from Crowley, went on, and Crowley and him still were kind of friends all the way into the 30s. They were still exchanging correspondence. There's tons of Crowley correspondence out there too that has not been really properly put together and put to the public. And even all his writings, nobody's really done a job on his journalistic writings either. As far, even some of the main scholars of Crowley haven't even done it. Tobias Churton, Phil Baker just came out with a book about Crowley in London, and Kaczynski didn't really do that either. So there's a lot of stuff that's unknown. But Regardie was with him for like, I think 3 years or something. But then he went on and was still influenced by his experience with Crowley. And really, I think he ended up in Sedona. Like all these guys ended up in the States.
I would love to see some more information on his German double agent period in New York, when he was in New York and he's writing about the Nazis and trying to, well, not the Nazis, but the German side in World War One, right? It was after World War One.
So he wrote for two magazines called The Fatherland and The International. You can see those documents, and actually did a thing on Kubrick with Sean McCann where I showed the cover of The International. If you can pull it up, It's really fascinating because Crowley's writing as himself, as Tomegatherian, and then also Schnitzler is writing an article for that, who wrote Trome Novelle, which is the basis for Eyes Wide Shut.
Wow. And
so
the serpent's in the queue, which is interesting too. I like that.
Right. But going back to the beginning, I mean, the whole story, maybe I can pull it up. I probably have a copy of it. You will see, I would say type in Crowley, Fatherland, or International, and then Schnitzler, and see if it pulls up. Schnitzler is Schnitzler. But the story of the Golden Dawn is that he got into the Golden Dawn. He made oaths not to release any of the information. He was influenced, a lot of like weird stuff about Crowley being weird and strangely dressed or taking on different guises comes from somebody who was in the Golden Dawn who also influenced him. He doesn't write much about him, but his name was, he also wrote books, but I can't remember it offhand. So he takes on this guy, gets information, he goes up, there's 2 levels within there. There's the famous poet who wrote, was it Butler? Yeats is in there as well. And so then Crowley wants to ascend to the 2nd level. They're trying to fight against it. Crowley actually has some kind of physical altercation with Yeats and gets kicked out, then has to go to France to talk to this guy to get let in. And then he gets out, he gets kicked out, and then he starts publishing all of his information that he said he was going to keep quiet. And then there was a lawsuit. So there's a lawsuit between these 2 guys. Crowley clearly broke his oath of silence and kind of went on down the thing. Let me see if I can find it.
He's a rat.
What was the?
Yeah, he was from the very
proceeding?
beginning. But it's
technically
not
a
known.
warlock. A warlock is a betrayer.
Yeah, but
of
it's
the
not
secret
known
Yeah.
exactly when Crowley really became a spy. We know he was a spy of World War I, but there's very suspicious things that he did. He became the head of these girls. This is like a smaller element of Crowley, which is the ragtime girls. You can actually type that in. You'll see
Yeah.
a thing of them.
I've
But he
heard
went
about that.
to Russia right around all the 1905 was really a critical year for the Russian Empire.
Oh,
He was there traveling around,
William,
and that's where Crowley got the idea and the symbolism from the Orthodox Christian Church when he created his Gnostic Mass. It was based on what he saw in Russia.
Oh, what
William,
period was it?
I'm sorry. William, have you seen or maybe read the book by George Pendle? You know, the CBS show Strange Angel that was based on the Jack Parsons
I should.
story.
I haven't sat down.
You don't need
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
You know it all.
Since Andreas,
It's a watered down
Andreas talking
version.
about since he's talking about the connection with the German spying and all that, I have a feeling that Jack Parsons has a lot to do with the story, because it was, if you watch, well, I got to read the book again, but it's based on the book. But towards the end of the series, just before they cut it off, because they're supposed to introduce L. Ron Hubbard, and then they cut it off. But the thing is that it was during the war effort. It was during this time when the Nazis were developing rockets. So it was a time, a very urgent time where Jack Parsons was being pressured. His whole team is being pressured to develop a rocket before the Nazis get there. And that was also when the series started introduced Aleister Crowley into the series.
This is the most
where he didn't
hilarious
really meet
comic
him.
book I've ever seen. Is this real? I mean,
That's
is that
not
really
real.
L.
It
Ron
should
Hubbard
be.
down there? Is that L. Ron Hubbard?
It's got to be
This is the funniest book.
with a
Okay.
fainted
Dude, that's
woman.
him.
Where is this?
That Marjorie
Who's this
Cameron?
woman in
Yeah,
red?
yeah,
Is
it-
this
it's
the
It's gotta be
Babylon
Marjorie
whore?
Cameron. It's gotta be Marjorie
Cameron.
Cameron. Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
I mean,
Yeah.
somebody is clever. I like it.
Actually,
Rocket
John
scientist of
Ono
Satan.
Lennon's song about Crowley. What is that called? That is so good.
Oh my
You know what I'm
god,
talking about?
it's the whole side of things I did not know. I want to show my
John
father all this
Ono
Beatles
Lennon.
shit.
Just type in Parsons, Jack Parsons, or Crowley Parsons.
Oh, that's right. He has that song. with
Andreas,
the
I
Primus.
just
Anyway,
sent you the
I'm just
picture
finished
of
what I
the
was just
International
talking about.
Schnitzler
Oh, okay.
and
Did you
the
send it?
swastika and
Okay.
everything. It's
So-
in your
so-
Twitter. It's in your
Oh,
Twitter. Maybe
yeah.
you can pull it up.
One sec. Let me find that.
Sorry, we tend to go on tangents here. It's
I
Oh,
love
yeah.
tangents.
That's
I
all
got
right.
a whole
That's
set of new
I mean, I
tangents.
Yeah,
covered
so
all
sync
this
it.
territory in my 2 books, Prophet of Evil and Children of the Beast.
Oh, this is
Right,
really
so
the
all
cover.
of his stuff is that. So yeah.
Marvelous.
Gee.
there's
What
a
year
lot
is
to
this?
unpack there.
1917. Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
Flowers by Arthur Schnitzler. Schnitzler was very strange. You got to look into that guy. He was like a contemporary of Freud, but His diaries are probably just as weird as Crowley. And then you see the Fellow de Se, Aleister Crowley, and then the revival of magic by the Master Therium, which is the great beast, right? That's Crowley's kind of Latin.
So I mean, this is interesting because this is 1917. I mean, obviously, there's Coca-Cola is using this symbol at this time, even. But does this kind of say? I mean, we talked about rock stars getting interest in Crowley. Are there politicians and World War II influencers, whatever we're calling social influencers?
We know Hitler kind of had a little bit of an interest in Crowley. Probably knew about Crowley. Crowley was in Berlin right as the Nazis were taking power. He did a thing of his art, like a showing of his art at an art gallery in Berlin. It's known that he had a painting of Huxley in there, and Huxley, I think that Crowley turned Huxley on to peyote, and that's kind of lost. There's a painting of Crowley of Huxley it has to be in a private collection. There's a record of that in the record of Crowley showing, but nobody knows where that picture is. Crowley was not a very good painter. He really gave it an effort, but he looked like he could have been in, 8th grade.
Wow.
But so there it is.
That's pretty intense, right?
What
there.
a trip. So where are we discussing like influences of Huxley from Crowley or vice versa?
Go look up Huxley.
I think peyote would be a pretty big influence.
Go look. One of Huxley's book is titled "Do What You Will."
Really?
One of
There you
Huxley's
go.
books is titled "Do What You Will."
Wow.
That's
I
pretty
don't.
mad.
I read The Doors of Perception. Wow. Okay.
Dang. All right.
Far
And
out. I
even
want a copy. Wow.
I haven't read it.
You haven't read it.
Man,
I did just do the whole thing. Huxley was not like Orwell. He wrote Brave New World, but it's not positive. It doesn't. I mean,
Sure.
it doesn't have that moral kind of outrage that Orwell
No,
had. This anti-human moral outrage.
But
He was more
the
kinda
moral
like his
is
brother.
that all information is available. It's just people tend to not dig, even though it's there.
Right.
They would suffice with the distractions and the lesser, right?
Brave New World's about the Jetsons meeting the Flintstones. It's just literally that movie. If you ever watch that made-for-video cassette, Jetsons meet the Flintstones, because literally you find out they're at the exact same time. The Flintstones just live in the ground period. The Jetsons are in the sky. They're working for Space Loose Rockets. They're doing what they have to do for the company. But at one point they do crash, and they do find out that there's an entire society that's living in the Badlands, right? And you could probably assume that George Jetson is the injected with alcohol instead of bettering genes character that we represent. I don't know. But sorry, Ed, you were gonna say something. If you remember, Ed.
Oh, no, I was just trying to mention that Huxley has this Crowley's. I mean, that he shares the same birthday with Kubrick.
Oh, really? Well, that's pretty
Oh,
good.
wow.
Yeah, July
Yeah.
26th.
No,
Yeah.
isn't it Jung who shares a birthday with Kubrick? Is it Huxley too?
yeah, it's Huxley as well.
Yep.
Oh, geez.
It's ridiculous.
Man,
Yeah,
There's a lot of
famously,
power going on
Huxley,
there.
C.S. Lewis, and JFK all died on the same day.
huh?
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
the JFK Day, right? November 22nd.
And Huxley was on acid.
I should probably save this for another time, but I'm just gonna throw it in right now. Have you guys seen that Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton have a show called Gutsy?
No.
So they go and they meet like a famous clown in France, and they go all around like interviewing people. It's like the gnarliest Bernaysian campaign, but they even go as far as to like get proper clown training in the school. And they're like, put on the nose, Hillary, be the clown. But they say that being a clown is, a beautiful mistake. And there's a lot of mistakes that aren't beautiful, but a clown is a beautiful mistake. So I don't know, but that's done now. All right. Putin could spark territorial free-for-all in Antarctica by threatening to rip up treaty.
Yeah.
Andy, you brought this up.
Yeah, I heard it like an hour before the show. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. But it also kind of seems like more cannon fodder for people like us.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, what would this do? Because he's also supposedly claiming that, what we all kind of know or think, at least, that there's an entire continent under the ice with lakes and rivers and fresh water and all this. And he's kind of giving this very strange promise in a way, which is
an alien base there.
yeah, fuck that. Old human bases.
Well,
yeah, recent Tartarian bases, right?
Fuck yeah.
Well, I mean, just look at
Bach Ringlands.
Just look at Buzz Aldrin. I mean, who visited there?
Well,
That's something really,
I'd
really
like to
going on
tie
there.
it into the coronation of King Charles, because I feel like both of these things, like there's a transition happening in the
Dude.
multipolar world stage, right? And so I know, Will, you were thinking a little bit about the coronation as well. Did you have any thoughts about this?
I think they're going to crown him on the, what is it, the famous stone, the
The
occult
scone
in
stone?
Scotland. Yeah.
The scone stone is supposed to be Jacob's
Yeah.
ladder, right? When Jacob sleeps on
Mhm.
the stone,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Ah.
That's their tie all the way back through David, through the Irish kings to they tie their ancestry back to the, Davidic line, supposedly. You can actually pull up the old line, the line of
you
Queen
know what,
Elizabeth,
actually-
and it goes back 2,000 years at least. Yeah, that's
Oh,
it.
word.
Scone stone.
Like a
No,
hat.
it's the
and
other one.
Andrea,
It's not the
can-
scone stone. It's a
Andrea,
different
can you
stone.
pull up?
It's
Oh,
called the stone of
this
revealing. No, what is it?
This
That's
guy here.
That's it.
Right.
That's it.
Supposedly someone tried to
Oh.
carry this out in the 80s and they dropped it, which you can see here on the corner. And so a little tiny bit of it chipped off, but they had a gravel parking lot and supposedly it was lost, which I imagine was like the most intricate MI6 or 7 plan or 8 or 9 or whatever. But yeah, there you go.
Well,
Did you
I mean,
guys-
we'll see what happens. He's definitely different than his mother. He was very involved with Epstein and
Yeah.
Maxwell.
And
Charles III. He'll now be Charles
freaking
III.
Jimmy Savile.
Yeah,
whatever.
Savile.
And Seville, like he
Bill,
had
thank you.
very
Did you-
strange. My
you guys-
understanding is
oh,
he was
sorry.
just as bad as Andrew, but they just didn't have enough as much evidence. Andrew had Giuffre. Interestingly, Dershowitz just got deposed last week by Giuffre versus Dershowitz. So that was not covered by anybody, not even anybody in the alternate media.
I like the story
Because-
that Charles is way worse and they have plenty of the evidence, but that the queen had to make a deal.
How many jewels are there? Are there 22 jewels there? I wonder. Going around the crown.
Yeah, what do we know about the crown? Someone told me to do a deep dive into the crown.
Oh,
and I don't know.
India. Oh, I just made a post just yesterday. India wants the diamond back, the crown,
Right.
The Star of
Imperial
India
State
or
crown.
whatever.
Yeah, well, it's called. I forgot what it's called, but it was extracted from Pakistan, I think, originally. But they, I just find it very interesting because it's
This one, they're
Oh.
like,
it's a
that
purple,
one on
it's
your
a purple
hat?
crown. As you know, purple is the crown chakra.
Can you imagine how audacious it is, though? Because you're like, see your hat. You know how you took like a stone from every people you conquered. You know, like that. Like, can we just have that one back? Because it's like if you had too many lapels on, and you're just like, can I take one of the lapels back? I don't know.
I want to discuss Crowley more. Can
Yeah,
you-
no,
real quick before we
somebody-
leave Charles,
Yeah, yeah,
real
sure,
quick. Did you
sure.
guys see what he said at COP26?
No.
He was referencing that the world needed to take a new military style stance to bring about change. And he mentioned a number of times a he, a his, a him, but never said who the hell this he was, but that whoever this he was,
What is it?
had
Pronoun problem?
an unlimited supply of funding to create this new world, basically. And I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if you can find anything on it, but he's literally saying like he has, indisposable funds. This will
What is
be
it,
in the
Great Reset?
trillions, something like along those lines. But I mean, of course, the way I found it through like a weird, obscure Instagram post that was twisting it as if he's talking about the Antichrist.
Well, here's
But-
the actual transcript saying like with trillions at his disposal far beyond global GDP and with the greatest respects beyond even the governments of the world's leaders, offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition. So how do we do it? First, how do we get the private sector all pulling in the same direction? Yes, this is totally a reset move, but we'll buy it.
And who is the he? He never, and people are
Is
going
that not
on about it
him?
now.
Is he not? Is it not just like Leach talking in this third
It's
person?
Prince Charles standing
Yeah.
there talking about a he,
Yeah,
but he never meant. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking.
Oh,
at it wrong.
you know who it is?
He's
You know who Prince Charles is talking about?
Elon
All right,
Musk.
I would make a freaking wager right here that he's talking about that Prince Charles was
Rothschild.
talking about King Charles III. Because King Charles III is him, but he doesn't exist yet. at that
Right,
time.
right. Yeah, no, I think that. Yeah.
Whoa.
But
Okay.
isn't like
All right.
Schwab and all these guys, Kissinger, they're really just fronts for people like Charles III, elite bloodlines, and like rich people, Rockefellers, Gates, etc.
Sure.
Aren't they all kind of in on it?
I feel like the famous faces are the least important, right?
Yeah,
The
damn
more
right.
the more they suffer from what the ancient Romans called as infamia, right? The being famous, like worse than being a prostitute in the old world was to be famous. If you were a
Right.
comedian, you had no rights or anything like that.
Right.
So people that you've heard of, are they've failed at that and they've been publicked essentially, and they've lost their rights to privacy.
Yeah,
you know?
and they work
There
as
you
a
go.
sheath of protection for people who actually dictate policy in their lives.
Right,
which
isn't that
I
always
discussed
kind of like the
yesterday on
mafia, right?
deep chair.
Right.
Yeah.
There's supposedly like, so it's
Yeah.
Andreas Saxon von Goth or something, Saxon Coburg von
Gotha,
Goth.
yeah, Gotha.
Yeah, he's got a higher royal
Germans.
position than the Queen of England, according to the Wilhelm line, and he's born in Louisiana and like raised around the world, right?
How far into that can we go though? Like, I mean, think about it. I mean, do we trust the bloodlines that we know of, or is that fed to us as well? I mean, how much can they hide successfully when they know people are going to dig like the way we dig? Yeah,
Well,
I don't know. Will they go to forever, or do they just expect the best of us to?
Well,
find
eventually, it just turns into just straight up gaslighting.
That's
So you'll
fair.
have something
Yeah,
clear
well,
as day, everyone,
to cut you off,
whatever, and then they
Right.
just deny. It's like the Lenny Bruce bit around, like he's like, if you're cheating or whatever, deny. It doesn't matter. Oh, you got pictures, you deny. Because if people want to believe something, there's enough of the populace that will gravitate in that direction that they're just like, that's the cognitive dissonance,
Mm.
So
I just learned that
Hey,
Schwab was
Andreas.
in Manhattan 9/11. That was kind
Oh,
of a
really?
surprise. There should be a whole book of who was in Manhattan for 9/11. David Rockefeller, Schwab.
Oh, and they
Bush
have like
was
high
there.
view windows and stuff from wherever they're at too.
I think he said he was in a building and he saw it happen. It's in the intro to That
The
Will
Ring
Be
of Power?
Done, a good book by
Like the
Dennett.
documentary?
No, it's in the intro. I think he states it elsewhere, but really good book about his brother Nelson Rockefeller and how much of a world titan he really was.
while we have you here, I don't want to go end this conversation without discussing and to some degree the Saudi star issue. Because are you familiar with this? Do you know what I'm talking
The
about?
Saudi star issue or what?
Saudi, the Hebrew letter Saudi.
It's a tarot.
So basically, like, Crowley's, Thoth deck, painted by Lady Frida Harris, for every one of those pieces, they're actually enormous, right? And like for every one of those, there's like, I don't know, 5, 6, I don't know, are burnt. So like he would have her do them. And so she supposedly had no experience with the occult prior to this. So she kind of worked as the right brain while he was the left with the information and all this stuff. And there's certain twists. Like, so if you look at Crowley's Book of Thoth, and he describes the treatment of the arcana and the way that he relates to the arrangement of the letters, he switches the emperor and the star in their attributions. So he basically makes the emperor, which would normally be associated with the Hebrew letter He, he makes that into Saudi and switches that with the star, which would normally be Saudi. He makes that He, and by doing so, he actually reflects something that this is so crazy. So like my background is like I studied with a rabbi for over 10 years, just transcribing the Zohar. And I do and so before I studied with him and after and during, to a degree, I looked at European occultists, and Crowley was a huge focus. And some really interesting things happen when you do like kind of cross analysis between the letters themselves, the 22 letters, how they exist, and what Crowley actually did. I don't think that this is an example of actually like Crowley doing some, actual like black magic necessarily. All it seems to be doing is articulating our orientation towards Gevura. I don't know if you know my language, but like the left
And
hand
I'm familiar
path.
with the terms, the Hebrew terms. He uses it a lot often.
Yeah. So when people like say the left hand path, that can be a little misleading. Like if you're relating to that as it exists Kabbalistically with Yakin and Boaz. So like you have it's established in strength. So that's Yakin and Boaz. So like I was discussing a lot of this stuff last night on the deep share.
Heck yeah.
This is the thing.
Andreas, can you pull up that cover of Economist again?
The Economist cover. Yeah, totally.
That's the best example I can tell.
The 2017 Trump one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eddie's right. This is like super helpful.
I
And so
don't
like
know other examples right off the bat, but
right. So there's particulars in this cover that are like
that one. Yeah.
really straightforward. So you see the star there and you see judgment, but his position, Trump's position there as judgment, is actually he's in the position of the emperor. So they have like the Emperor, they mixed it with the Judgment, and they tilted those particular cards. And so even that they show the Emperor next to the Tower, it would be obviously in the other direction if you're laying the cards out like a Vesica Pisces, you know, where the kind of the hero's journey, as Joseph Campbell liked to call it, because, you know, he would relate to the Arcana that it's like the fool's journey as he moves through this whole thing. He encounters all these characters. There's actually a few films that use that as a template. Oddly enough, one of them is Groundhog Day and Pee-wee's Big Adventure. They used the Arcana as a means to, and both those films, they have tarot readings that were removed, and you can find them in the original scripts. So like that actually explain that. But anyway, yeah, no, I'm sorry, it's hard to talk about this stuff. But this is really significant because what you get revealed through these different arrangements of the letters is a different treatment of what constitutes strength. And so I take it that Liber Oz is actually basically like, if you're relating to this, if you relate to the letters as a name, so to speak, and you're like, you have this perfect arrangement. So in the Book of the Law, he says all the letters in the book are right, but Sadi is not the star. And then how does he have, so he's like, that just came through or whatever. And I had to reconcile it, and I had to figure out what was what and how to make it make sense. And there's a whole mathematical code involved in this. But my understanding is that neither name, neither the 22, neither the alphabet, nor this other twist in it are actually the thing in itself. And that's a problem. Like, even like when we're relating to the Arcana, it's like these point to an archetypal reality, but they're not that. And any representation we can make of that isn't the thing in itself. But we have to deal with the manipulations as they exist on the level they exist, even if it doesn't belong to the first order, the Sephiroth of the actual emanation, the lightning flash. But we're relating to the sustaining order, the empire that we kind of project on top of that. And so you have On, the god On, which relates to Heliopolis. If you see the Masonic handshake, the lion's paw, where they have the three fingers represent all my heart, all my mind, and all my strength, you know, that relates to well, we've discussed this, like the Wizard of Oz, you know, with the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and the Lion are obviously, but that's Oz. It's named that for a reason. L. Frank Baum was a theosophist. And so
Liber 77, right?
Right. So you have On, which is, it's geometrical. It's two words for strength. You have one is idolatrous. And so this is my opinion of why Crowley called strength lust, and why you have the Scarlet Woman and the Beast pictured on that card is because it's showing you in the exile of Shekinah, you have a replicant that's put in her place. It's essentially the story of Metropolis. So it's like there's a stand-in for the high priestess, so to speak. And then that stand-in is this other version of strength. And that's what we see reflected in Liber Oz. So it's like, but Oz itself as strength is the integrity of the tree of life itself in its ultimate underlying order. But then you have kind of this manipulative sheath that surrounds it, that enshrouds it, and that's the Klipo. And so like what Crowley was communicating was actually like he was articulating like our relationship to the Klipo in our like how we're oriented. Like we tend to do this thing out of like a compulsion. It's like a neuroses. And so like that it's very significant. But yeah, like Oz is 77. It's the gematria of a she-goat as well, which is interesting, and like my pet goat. But anyway, yeah. So you have the goat connection. It's also the gematria of Pan in Greek is 77, but then On is 707. So if one were to look up Jabalan, you'd see it's Yud He Vav He, Ja, Baal, and On. That's the Masonic Trinity. And so like that's the way that they relate to the, like we would say all my heart, all my mind, and all my strength as a Bible verse, but at the same time they relate to it as kind of this alternative Trinity. And so, you know, this idea of like worshiping another God, like I see like Crowley was able to like communicate exactly what we are compelled to do in that way. And then, you know, and I think that there's value personally in recognizing that distortion as to why it's a distortion, rather than trying to jump at the truth, because you can, in seeing the falsity as falsity, how it's false, I think that action itself aids in seeing the truth. It's a very like yogic concept of like neti.
Interesting.
Out there. Yeah.
Andreas, can you type in Frida Harris, Aleister Crowley? There's kind of a good picture of those two together. He looks kind of like an old desiccated fat guy, but you would never think of like his background. It's Frida, Frieda Harris. There it is. Yeah, but that middle one with Crowley. There it is.
That's the best quality. That's
so that's
good.
her. She did the thought deck, and I think that was his or her secretary. But yeah, that's him.
So I mean that's all well and good,
head,
but then he goes and rapes kids, right? Or whatever the story is. At least he's having.
It's not a story. Yeah, it's not a
He-
story. It's within his magical record of the beast.
He's
Well, he was
also
at-
he's
And
also
he
having
advocates it to other
he's all
people.
and he's doing sexual rituals in front of children, trying to normalize it in France at the end of his life. And this kind of reminds
Definitely
me
in
of
Italy. Definitely in Italy.
Oh, come on, that's Churchill. Don't tell
You know,
me that's not
I
true.
don't want to be I don't want to be the devil's advocate, but I think mostly the reason why he kind of have fallouts with the other magicians that he basically he's the one who really follows through with the sex magic, meaning the whole magic without fear. You cannot go all the way without hurting some people, and
Right.
You want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs, is what you're saying? And Crowley was willing
Yeah,
to break
pretty
those
much.
eggs.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
kind
man.
of a notorious
Scrambled.
meeting between him and Gurdjieff in like the 20s in France. They stared at each other, but they didn't get along. And he also was aware of, oh gosh, what was her name? Another kind of occult priestess. I forgot what her name was, but they were on a boat together. So he was aware of kind of fellow travelers. He had an admiration for Joseph Smith. So it was kind of interesting. Like he mentions Joseph Smith because they're doing the same thing. You can go look at how Joseph Smith received the Book of Mormon.
Totally.
He was doing the same rituals that Crowley was doing with Victor Newberg in Algeria at this oasis. It's the same thing. It's the same dark magic. And they actually talk about it in the Mormon church. So you can actually see Joseph Smith's shoe stone, and the same shoe stone Crowley was using the same type of magical ritual.
Aren't much of the
they share
Mormon
the same symbols
rituals?
too. The inverted pentagrams all over the church.
right.
There's masonry throughout the whole church. Go look at the state seal of Utah. It has the beehive. It's like full-on Masonic thing where the beehive, like I think it's even Pike who writes about it, is the beehive. You don't see all the activity inside. You see the beehive, but you don't see all the bees moving.
Ooh, that's an interesting interpretation. I don't even think I heard that from you.
Not an interpretation. That's the meaning
what
of
it
the
is?
symbol within Masonry. Like
Another
that's it.
fun one. The bee, the bee is the insert of the Freemason symbol, and also the fleur de lis. I think we did that right. The bee
Yep.
fleur de.
Interesting.
That's how he evolved. Yeah.
Yeah, it started out as this symbol and eventually became more and more, the branch of 40B.
It's all over the Queen's crown too.
Mhm.
So
Right. So the birds and the bees. But but this whole thing, I mean, the normalization of
That Star in the
sexualization-
West, that was JFC Fuller. That was one of two people invited to Hitler's 50th birthday. I'll just go back a little bit. Sorry. Anyway,
I don't know where I put it. Hold on. Star of the West.
just go back, click back through. You just had it. JFC Fuller, Star in the West. You just had it. Yeah, go forward.
JFC Fuller, Star of the West. I'll just open it again. Easier.
There you go.
There it is.
That's
Yeah.
the one.
And this is the cover with the sword, the rose sword, the Rosicrucian sword. It's interesting because when you start looking into like some of these numbers, like for Boy Scout groups or like biker gangs, I did a talk recently with Canadians about the Canadian biker gangs connection to the government, military, the old Canadian royal family, and the Scandinavian royal family's biker gang. I remember in Denmark meeting a bunch and understanding that was the thing. These numbers start to play in a bit more in ways. I was like, oh, okay, this is like a part of their culture. But okay, we've got this point now where we're hypersexualizing children today, and it's not just media, it's like this confluence of things. Corporations are buying, getting a demographic, but it's also the left and the progressive trying to move towards a new age, thing, right? Like it's supposed to be this beneficial thing of freedom and everything like that. It's in the hypersexualization. Is there a connect there? What do you think?
Certainly ideologically. I mean, I don't know how many of those people are cultists, but they're definitely operating on a kind of do what thou will ethos, no question. I don't know if they publicly stated it, but
well, do you think that there's like a
definitely.
progression? I mean, we think about the Beatles, Lennon's interest, like free love, all you need is love.
Absolutely. I mean, I trace that in Children of the Beast. The founder of the homosexual movement, who was sympathetic with NAMBLA and wore like a pro NAMBLA shirt, literally played the piano at OTO meetings, probably was in the same OTO environment as, like, literally knew Jack Parsons.
Was that Nick Nightingale from Eyes Wide Shut?
No. It wasn't symbolized by
You
him.
get what I'm saying?
The founder of the gay rights movement's name is
Harvey Milk.
No, he was a follow-on. Let me see if I can find this guy's name. I forgot it offhand.
What do you mean? I wonder if you also noticed like some of the, recently we're watching Trump being put on trial with the whole what is that the group called the boys what's that group that's a Trump supporting group?
Proud Boys.
What's it called? Something Boys.
Proud Boys.
Proud Boys. Yeah.
Proud Boys.
Not to be confused with Poor Boys, which are a sandwich.
Yeah.
Po Boys.
Okay, but if you look at some of the photographs, you're gonna catch some of them. The key members will be wearing regalia or symbols of Thelema with their
very fraternal, and there's that fraternal.
See, I'll take that. Like, I don't get the Nazi connection, but the Thelema connection for sure, right? That's more believable, actually.
No, but of course, but I'm saying these guys are practitioners. These guys are actually carrying out the mission wearing the universal hexagram.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you just look at it. It's like these people are actually out on the street. They're playing their good cop bad cop. The what do you call it? Audience provocateurs, basically. They're basically all assigned to be there to cause trouble.
Well, there's this tie-in with children raised in the image of Crowleyisms. You've got music. It's interesting how these kids like Lennon were picking up Crowley's work, and then you've got today's kids, which are beyond good and evil, beyond Judeo-Christianism and the idea that Satan is this Erasmus misaliteration of phosphore or something. It's like good and evil itself. And books like Shrek, right? Which the Shrek story is about the primal force in a child. It's fright, right? And this idea that there's a primordial fright. This is early chaos magic that's designed to shape kids, and then we talked about Winnie the Pooh a bit based on Winnipeg. David, you had a thing on this. I was going to ask you about.
Go back and see what they say on Wikipedia to its name, if they say so.
Winnipeg, Winnie was the given name to a female black bear in the London Zoo.
Oh, there it is, Winnipeg. Yeah, so it's Winnie. So they call it Winnie. So Winnie the Pooh is named after Winnie. Winnie's named after Winnipeg. But Winnipeg was the center of communications for North America. There's actually tours regularly of the capital as it is a recreation of Solomon's temple. And so every little part of the capital has its correspondence to the temple and all the measurements. It's all just Masonic stuff. But what's interesting, it has a gold statue of Mercury at the very top of it. And it's because Mercury, of course, is the god. It's the messenger god. So they're like, this is a center of messages. So this is where it just gets a little sinky. And I don't know what the hell, but there's like the blustery day, which is Wednesday. And then there's like this kind of idea of like, oh my God, what is all these connections? So it's like you're relating to like when telecommunications get to a point where kind of things are just we can communicate with each other at lightning speed and all that will entail. And so there's kind of this idea like that, Winnie the Pooh kind of encodes this kind of like this because it's Wednesday, so it's a play on words because it's like the Wednesday is the blustery day. There's that line from
which is Miraculous in Latin so and Spanish.
Every single John Landis anything contains a "See you next Wednesday" line somewhere. So whether you're talking about Trading Places, the Blues Brothers, the Thriller music video, whatever it is, it's all acknowledged by him as a reference to the line from 2001: A Space Odyssey that Frank Poole hears from his parents before he dies, where they say "See you next Wednesday," which sounds like see you next Thursday or Tuesday, CUNT, but it's like it's I don't know, there's a whole thread there. I got into it with Sonic in Brighton because his next door neighbor actually has the tree. He was way back when this guy, what is his name, who wrote Winnie the Pooh, he had a friend in Brighton whose last name was Sanders, and there's a tree in his backyard with a sign on it, this old tree with an old sign that says Mr. Sanders, and apparently that was where he got Winnie the Pooh's house from. I don't know if I needed to go through that whole tangent.
I mean, even if you just think about the fact that he's a beast, Winnie the Pooh's the beast, there's like a correlation there, and the idea that they're trying to imprint for children a new patterning that's absent of the Plymouth, exclusionary Christian traditions that, and similar puritanical Calvinist traditions that freaked out Eddie Aleister Crowley, right? As a kid. So, I mean,
you know what, that Disney just lost the ownership. I mean,
it's public domain. A public domain.
Yeah, and immediately
they didn't lose the publishing rights.
Horror movie.
They can still do it if they want. They can
kill
still
a
make
bear, kill a teddy bear.
Yeah. The horror.
What the movie's called.
The horror Pooh movie is great. I haven't seen it yet, but it does look blood and honey.
It looks really bad, but
Yeah.
okay.
I'm pro.
It looks hilarious. It looks hilarious.
I am pro public domain, but regardless, I was just gonna say, in terms of like these kinds of ideas that culturally there was like, hey, we're gonna make an alternative to Christian culture in Britain and in America, and this is done by a guy, Aleister Crowley, who is a spy, even at this point. And then there's a number of his friends who are part of, L. Ron Hubbard is associated, not necessarily too closely, but enough, like through the Marjorie Cameron and Jack Parsons, the idea of religions, promoting this new culture, this new world. Timothy Leary, do you think that there's something there?
I mean, Hubbard knew Crowley very well. He thought he was the one who came after from Liber Al. There's like a sequence in the book. They're looking for one to come after who will say everything. And I also wanted to mention that
really?
Crowley did a test of the numerology of Liber Al and ran it through his own kind of gematria stuff that I didn't really get into. But he said that the proof of that test was a proof that the Liber Al was written by a discarnate entity. And I have it in my book, Prophet of Evil. So his own self, whatever the test was.
William, I want to see if you know any of this. Is that because I also studied exopolitics as well, aliens and all that stuff. That they know that it's really well known that the naval intelligence of all the armed forces, the intelligence of all the armed forces has the priority. They're the ones who always get the first, get the documentation on their hands first. And L. Ron Hubbard, he was in U.S. naval intelligence. So I'm just wondering about all this connection because
that was my prequel question too. I was going to ask really quickly was like, do you think they were on the same boat? Have you found any evidence? Because I've heard stories that they were on the same boat.
I have not heard any evidence of an overlap between Hubbard and Crowley specifically. I know that he talked about Crowley. There's a recording where he talked about Crowley, but really the real insight about Hubbard is from his son, who changed his name and like went underground and totally freaked out. But his son said before the early days, I think Dianetics was 48, Scientology was 1950. He said his dad would get Crowley's writings out and like fondle them before his speeches and tell his son about Crowley and how great a black magician he was. I think that Hubbard really wasn't. He was as ambitious as Crowley. I think that he really was. And I have stories about. I know people who knew. This is Ataturk Crowley. That's one of his sons.
Dude, Ataturk Crowley's an interesting guy because he tried to build his own government and take over Europe, right? Like he
from a park bench. Yeah, he was not
from a park bench.
He tried to usurp the Treaty of Sofia, which put German houses ahead of the Franco-Anglo houses, and he started akin to the Franco, titles, and he donned himself French titles to continue on. Kind of interesting guy, Ataturk, right?
Yeah, I think he had 5 children. Crowley had a total of 5. One died, and then like some of these other ones, right? That disappeared. It's actually one ended up who was at the Abbey of Thelema, ended up in Berkeley, California, and she passed away in 2010. I could have walked right by her in north of Oakland, when I was going to school there. I never knew the difference, but she probably went through horrible abuse.
It's a bummer. Every time you type in
becoming a prostitute,
every time you type in Aleister Crowley's kids, you can't find anything but pictures of Barbara Bush. It's just this is where we're at today, I guess. But
what do we think?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of disturbing elements there. I could never prove anything, but I could prove that what's her name? The mother was in France around that time. Crowley was around in the mid-20s. That they knew certain people.
Yeah, she would go to parties with her friend, and they were both into those kind of that area of society, that high society group.
The article that came out popularizing that idea of the Barbara Bush Crowley relative connection, that was released on April 1st of one year. And so people have used that as an argument. And my argument to that is, hey, April 1st is the Green Man, man. Of course they would do it on the full day. Come on.
Right. It's the best day.
Go look at the similarities are really, I mean, it's incredible. Like they look, they're almost the same. She's the female version of him. She acts like him. There's weird things in 9/11.
If nothing more, it's a solid sync. I'll say that.
Yeah.
The breeding sensor. Yeah. So
I think 9/11. 9/11 is basically a Crowleyan type of a ritual. I mean, we're talking
I
about
think so.
destruction of the twin pillars, and I feel like the Bush, if it's anything, if he does have his bloodline or whatnot, I think he really is a continuation of his.
I believe it's argued that it's the Royal Arch degree of Freemasonry. That the end of the ritual is funny because if you go to sacredtext.com, or at least last time I did years ago, and you try and look up the actual ritual, it's not Duncan's ritual, obviously, but it's one of the grades of Freemasonry that they say you walk past the two Yakin and Boaz and you're to visualize them collapsing behind you as you cross the line. And so I don't know absolutely the validity of that, but I do find it interesting that when you go to look up that particular ritual that has actually been released as I don't know if it's technically a Freedom of Information Act, but lawyers had to fight to get that. I actually know one of them. It's from Santa Cruz. But there's like I informed him, I was like, you got all this stuff in court from the Freemasonic ritual stuff, and some of it's just fascinating and whatever. But I'm like, you get to the end of this ritual and it cuts off, because that's what I wanted to look for. Because if you interviewed Leo Zagami a while back, I heard that from him. So that they visualized them collapsing behind them and all this stuff. And I have yet to find the proof of it, but what I have found is a ritual cut short. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, sorry, go ahead.
Here's what I want to ask. Sorry, well, William, I don't even know the ritual that led to the publication of the Book of the Law in the Giza Pyramid. What is that ritual called that was carried out with Crowley and his wife?
It wasn't a specific ritual. He was with Rose Kelly. They were in Cairo. They were coming back to England. They went into the king's chamber inside the Temple of Giza. He supposedly made astral light through some kind of magical wand. Then they went back, and she was and these women all were, a lot of were kind of his magical inspiration. And she say, they are calling you. That was what she said. He didn't know who she was calling. So he went back to his apartment that he was staying at and did some kind of ritual on a table with bull's blood. And that's when he supposedly received this book over 3 days.
Yeah. But what I want to ask is that ritual was never closed. Like how you're supposed to close a circle of magic, right? But it was left wide open.
I thought that was the one that was
Newman,
Abramelin. I thought that he did part of the Abramelin, that he finished it years later. Is that correct or no?
He never said he finished it. He gave up on Abramelin because it was supposed to be 6 months. That's why he bought Boleskine Manor, is to do that. He said that there were magical, occurrences, there were ghosts and things like that. But he stated he never finished the Abramelin work.
Right. And then there's the Newburgh thing. I know that there's another tie there to A.A. Milne, because they both had houses along Loch Ness, and that Milne's house was sold to Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones, and also he died there and was buried. Didn't
it just burn down for like the third and final time, like relatively recently?
Yeah, they're rebuilding it right now. So it burnt down, and now somebody who's a Thelemites is working on putting it back together again.
What do you guys think of Peter Levinda? Are you familiar with Peter?
What's I know a lot about Peter.
Oh, he's laughing. He's laughing.
Yeah, tell me. What do you?
That's a long story. Where do you want to start?
I don't know. I'll tell you one thing.
Come to lunch.
From what I understand, he claimed that he was not in the OTO or had no affiliation with the OTO. After I saw that somewhere, I saw a documentary on the OTO where he is taking part in maybe the Gnostic Mass or something like that. But he's there, and I'm like, that's Peter.
No, he's in it. He's an uncredited participant. With the guy by
there you go. He's a participant.
Okay.
He's definitely there. Alex
heard
Jones
about
is in that one too. It's called Secrets.
The Secret Machine. Secret Machines. That's
totally different. That's his involvement with DeLong. He was also involved in the kind of the rip-off book of my book, Prophet of Evil. He wrote the foreword to that. Probably wrote a lot of that stuff. Took out a lot of the crucial Crowley information, and then wrote a bogus thing at the end. But he worked at the Magical Child in New York City, and there's probably a 99.9% chance he wrote this fake Necronomicon under the pseudonym.
Yeah, no, he did. He wrote that. That's
I think he really went under the fold. But I liked him from the beginning when I first checked out his books. But then at some point, especially when he met Tom DeLonge, that's when everything kind of he started to distort a lot of information after that.
You know what though? The data is the data. And a lot of his stuff, particularly Sinister Forces, what he cites, how his reference material, that information is what it is. If you want to go to speculate around in different ways, he kind of invites you to do that. But I do think that he probably wrote the freaking Necronomicon thing, and
that's been involved in all kinds of murders and deaths and things like that. The fake Necronomicon people, that some of these naive, credulous teenagers think that it's an authentic book. It claims to be probably
embarrassing
book.
for him, and he probably did that early on, right? I don't know.
I don't know. He's never come out and said it's embarrassing. He did allegedly did a funny coast to coast show under the name Simon. Somebody took the audio and ran it through some kind of equalizer and slowed it down, and it sounded exactly like Lavenda and other things. Andreas, check your Twitter. I got a picture for you.
Okay, cool. One sec.
Oh, Andreas, I also sent you. Can you show? I sent it to you. One picture of just what I was talking about earlier.
Here, 1 second.
Got a lot of stuff.
Boom. Here is. This should open. What? Oh, there we go. Wow. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Have you seen that before?
It just gets bigger and bigger as I start. It's like when you look at a picture and then it starts growing.
A second from the left, by the way, to anybody looking at this.
Dude, it's all the small things really that Tom DeLonge does.
Podesta is. I think this guy is a serious. He is a black magician.
He loves aliens. He loves the History Channel and he does his Ancient Alien spot. What else is he known for? What are you talking about?
Well, I mean,
he's a Sith. Look at him.
He's been doing a lot of blood curdling displays, and he showed
the 14 in the fish. Is that just a reference to? Does somebody know more than me, or is that just a reference to the 14 digits of the hand? Having God has 3 hands.
Also,
14
Osiris
plus 14
too.
plus 14 is 42. The hidden hand communication, like the way that you'd have the comrade holds his hand inside of his shirt or whatever, because it's like indicating the hidden hand, but then that relates to God having 3 hands. You know what I'm talking about?
But it also correlates.
I'm trying to find this picture of Lavenda. The movie, the documentary is called Secrets of Secret Societies.
So somebody spilled the beans.
Beans are spilled everywhere.
Oh, there's so many beans spilled. This is
geez, what the hell?
Owen Benjamin told me.
The founder of McGinnis,
Owen Benjamin
who's the guy in front of him
about this?
Who's the guy in front of him?
I don't know. He looks like a Proud Boy kind of.
I don't know. I might be with the photographer. Sorry.
Oh, that's very strange.
Wow, that's fun. That's fun.
Yeah, cool. Where'd you guys get that? I haven't seen that.
Good job, Eddie.
Eddie found it somewhere.
He goes frozen just now. That's his punishment. If Eddie, did you hear? Where did you? Are you there? You hear? Is he gone?
Yeah. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You were frozen for a second. Where did you find this?
Yeah. Well, it's everywhere. You just go to McGinnis, Proud Boys, and then this is a shot of the the protest. But there was another shot. There's another.
Yeah, this isn't the only one. There's a few of these.
I wish I could find the Bernie Sanders ones I saw. There were Bernie Sanders bees inside of Masonic symbols and Crowley's star.
God.
Yeah.
So
I'm just about to find Lavenda. Lavenda in the OTO ritual is coming very shortly.
Oh, you're gonna find it. Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm gonna find it.
So that sync flick that I was sharing. So there's a film called A Dark Song, and it is about the Abramelin, the mage, working, and it's pretty incredible that somebody made a movie kind of just depicting what this would actually look like in practice, and they went to great lengths. It's pretty impressive. So yeah,
did that come out a couple years ago?
Yeah.
So this is probably one of I love all your syncs. This is one of the most amazing synchronicities that I've ever seen. And it's not just a great movie or a great album or that they go well together. It's beyond that.
They're both from Ireland, by the way. Yeah.
Usually you can watch a movie and listen to a soundtrack that you've added when you remove the original soundtrack, right? With this one, the music and the soundtrack, there are pauses and silences in the movie. and there are pauses and silences in the album that fit perfectly. So
yeah,
it's
both the
designed to play
volumes
at the
are
same
up and
time.
they don't conflict.
At all. It's
No,
weird.
at all. Yeah.
Andreas, check your Twitter again. I just sent you the picture of the one.
And jump in. There we go. Secret societies. Oh wow, hold on. Here he is in American Chopper.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
referring to. Thank you. I saw this on television. I don't usually watch television. I was like,
And then right here, which is also great. I mean, of course, I've seen this one, but lest we forget, like, how cool is that guitar? That's a pretty cool guitar.
Guitar, the apron.
Decadent.
It's
See, there's something about
Secret
San Diego.
Machines.
San Diego and the
Secret
Air
Machines
Force.
is spelled with a K, right? It's with a K.
Oh,
Mhm.
there you go. Yeah. Special K.
Yeah, it was with a
Venda's in
K.
there.
Secrets with a K.
Oh my god.
They did a number on the S.K. Bain, the most
Yeah.
dangerous book ever written. They fooled so many people, man.
Yeah.
It's
There was
terrible.
K.
Wow.
Bain.
They
Why
Wow, that
why
book
is
is amazing.
why is Tom standing with Prince Hall? Looks
Well,
like he's standing.
I mean, because San Diego, right? I guess, and that was maybe the fastest way for him to get to the 32nd, so he can move on quicker.
I
or
should.
something.
Yeah. He sent me a personal email. Do you know that?
Oh,
Like,
really?
trying to this
Tom
guy, which I
DeLonge?
have. Do you want me to read it?
yeah,
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
yeah. I
please
want you to
do.
read the message from Tom
Let me
DeLonge.
find it. Where is it? What did I do with it?
It would be nice to have disclosure from your mom.
Look,
All the small things. God,
I have it somewhere.
scour
Where
on
did
the
I
face
do
of the
it?
90s.
Tavistock mind control is really interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Hey,
we'd
you
live
what?
in a world without it would be that much more exciting.
We
Sorry,
all
Eddie.
listened to a lot of it
Hey,
growing up.
hey, Andres, can you pull up the logo of Blink 182 what is his band name, whatever it's called?
Yeah.
Oh, he
Yeah, if you look
also
at-
like when another thing about Lavenda, he wrote a long biography of Ray Buckland, who was a follower of Gerald Gardner, who was associated with Crowley, the guy who started Wicca. But he seemed to know who Ray Buckland was, which was a huge kind of American Wiccan presence in the United States.
Hey, is this Blink 182 album from 2001 September that has a picture of an airplane in red right above these pair of pants that look like twin towers, just above a green G on a jacket with the hand inside of the pocket? Does that mean something? What do you
Is
guys
this really from
think?
2001?
Oh yeah. This is the Take Off Your Pants and
Pants
Jacket,
and
album.
yeah.
But
Oh.
isn't
That
it
is-
also the
It's almost
Wow.
like the Microsoft fonts or whatever it's called. You know the big what is that Microsoft fonts that they use? They also have the plane hitting the twin tower.
oh yeah,
that's
the
right.
emoticons and the wingdings or something like that.
Wingdings, yeah.
Right, yeah, that's pretty good.
But
Um,
I'm trying to guide you to another logo. If you look at the other logo, it's almost like it's easy. It looks like a symbol of chaos magic, but at the same time, it also has the red and blue representation of
All right, it's got the smiley
Oh,
face,
yeah.
double X.
Yeah.
Is this the one you're
Yeah,
talking
that-
about? Oh my gosh!
No,
yeah.
no,
right
it's not
above
this
it.
one.
But this does
yeah,
interesting
that
with
one,
with the arrows coming out of the circle,
Is
like a
that
chaos
their
magic sigil.
is that their band's like property? Is that their copyrighted
Oh, yeah.
material, or did somebody make it for them?
No, this is one of their logos. They've had so
That's
many
definitely
different
from
logos.
them.
That's
That's
one.
This
of
is
them.
them.
this is their sigil. It looks like, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Chaos.
it's also very
Makes perfect
similar
sense.
to Hillary Clinton's campaign logo, with the same arrow to the left. You know
I
the
couldn't
whole.
believe that they did that. It's like it was immediate. I was like, really, to the left too, like or to the right? Excuse me, like
Yeah,
the way
yeah.
they did that.
Yeah.
Like
You know
it's like-
the-
Beast.
It was a very impactful logo, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just Javero and Chesed. You know, it's the same the concept.
There
Yeah,
was
you know,
a
Trevor
there was a
Tucker.
Crowley thing I wanted to jump into. I kind of almost got there, but then I stopped. Maybe we can elaborate on this. And also, if you will find that letter, that sounds awesome. I would love to see that. But the AA.
Oh, you couldn't find it?
Well, he's looking right. Yeah, he's
Okay.
finding it.
But I have it right here. It's
Oh, you
very
do?
long.
Oh no, yeah. Well, if you want to share part of it or
It'll
anything,
Please
take
go
5
ahead,
minutes.
please.
I'll
Yeah.
read a couple. I'll read a couple things.
all right.
He says, "I figure I should respond to this, but I'm not sure. No, I know where to begin. However, I'll try. It's long though. Get a glass of water. Breathe. In the first place, why is it claimed that I am an apologist of sorts for Aleister Crowley when I ask for proof that Crowley performed human sacrifice or molested children? Everyone rails against the mainstream media for obscuring facts or misrepresenting them, but the alternative media is just as guilty if they lack if they use a lack of evidence as evidence itself. Journalistic integrity is as much a requirement for the alternative media as it is for the mainstream media, and maybe more. If all I did was take people's words for things, there would be no need for me to research, write, or publish. Or I could do it all from an easy chair and spin the rest. Anyone who knows my work knows that I document my assertions and label my speculations as speculations. I ask that others do the same, especially when the assertions are controversial. I don't defend Crowley or his behavior, but I don't ascribe to him actions that he did not perform or for which there is no proof. Spectral evidence should have gone out with the Salem witchcraft trials. Second, I'm not in the FBI, never was, nor the CIA, never was. I've never been a member of any intelligence agency for any country in the world. I've never been a member of any occult organization either, as they would be quick to point out themselves. I've known a few members of all of these, but then I've been an active researcher for a very long time, something like 40 years now, maybe more, and an international businessman as well. You run across all sorts of people in those professions, and as a researcher, you seek them out. As a businessman, they find you. So
dude, I mean,
on.
what's been freaking me out is halfway through I was looking at the pictures of Masonic stuff. It isn't even every single picture has got like a Freemason symbol on his thing, which is whatever, you know. But Macbeth, he's got a Macbeth on stage. I even feel weird saying it on my show. I mean, that's you shouldn't do that. That's crazy. I don't know. I love it. That's kind of amazing. I don't know, but that letter isn't that's kind of objective sounding. Do you think he's kidding? Or I mean, it sounds like he really is like a bro philosopher. He's one of those online dudes.
He's coming across like that. He goes on to Roy. He talks about Roy. He talks about DeLong, Potesta later on in the email. He took his time though. He took his time.
I've known some dudes in SoCal that are like that though. And it makes me wonder, maybe he really is just like, he takes some blow every once in a while and he gets really excited about aliens. I don't know.
We've talked about this many times, like how these are cogs in a machine, like it's all compartmentalization. So maybe him being a bro philosopher is exactly what they need for what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. I see that.
You know, I mean, a lot of these guys have no clue. That's how we would compromise them otherwise.
No. Lavenda
write a letter
to
William and
magical
reveal too much shit.
Now, Lavenda started very young in his teens. He was at the Magical Child and he was at some other, like, imagine, like, I want to go work at, like, as a lifeguard because I want to be a lifeguard when I grow up. Like, he went and worked at this 2 magical bookstores in New York when he was a kid. He admits it. So he's not, he's 40 years in, but I think he knows he can pull the wool over people's eyes. Like,
right. So, I mean, this kind of reminds me though. So you get these people that you can easily discredit. I mean, Crowley kind of almost fits this bill. He's not credible. He's like a populist. People can, you know, the lower classes can be swayed by him, which is a phenomenon that's new maybe at the time that he's emerging, but that starts to emerge more and more. And they have this Golden Dawn thing, the Temple of the Adepts, which that's his aim, is to steal the Temple of Adepts from the Golden Dawn. And every picture I can find of it, it is literally the set from Holy Mountain, right? Like that's basically what we're looking, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And
or
there's
Lucifer Rising,
yeah, that's true too. And that's actually probably a better correlation. But I had this story in my head about John Lennon financing Jodorowsky's. You know more about this because you have the citation from the documentary on Jodorowsky, right, David? What it is that if you watch the audio commentary with Jodorowsky for the Holy Mountain, he makes no mention of it. If you watch the audio commentary for Fondo and Liz, he explains the whole thing with Yoko and John helping him out when he basically had burnt a bunch of the footage on accident and whatever stuff happened, and he was like had run out of money, and then they were the ones who came through because they were fans of El Topo. Right. So in other words, John Lennon, after he couldn't make The Hobbit, something that came up recently, they were trying to make The Lord of the Rings. But J.R. Tolkien didn't want to be associated with the Beatles. John Lennon started doing these anonymized productions. And so his interest in Jodorowsky, you can see the difference all of a sudden in the filming of Holy Mountain, because Holy Mountain goes from being, you know, kind of shot on location, and it is what it is, to these multi-million-dollar today versions of sets, these amazing sets that look like they belong in a Tavistock James Bond film. This is the James Bond canon, right? Which also DeLong used in Angels in the Airwaves, that idea of putting the cannon, the tube in front of the camera, all these
Didn't Kanye also use Holy Mountain imagery?
Good point. Let's do
Wouldn't
Yeah,
this.
look up
Surprise me.
Kanye,
Hey,
Holy
hey,
Mountain.
You
He
want,
had it in his sets.
is-
There's a picture of
is-
Kanye with Jodorowsky.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, have you ever seen that?
I don't
Yeah,
think
look
so.
up Kanye West Jodorowsky. Do you know Jodorowsky officiated Marilyn Manson's wedding?
I do.
No, really?
And
Oh,
if you
that's
Yeah, look
take
that up.
Really?
Marilyn Manson's album Hollywood and you play it over Holy Mountain, it
There they
syncs
are.
flawlessly. I have
Shut
that on
the front
website.
door. Look at
Yeah.
these.
Do you
two.
know
Look at
that
how-
Willie,
Jodorowsky?
what do you think?
Do you know that Jodorowsky admitted to drinking and enjoying human blood?
That would make sense from some of
Wouldn't
his
surprise
movies.
me.
Yeah, I have
Hey,
no
those
doubt
were
about
crazy
that.
times. You know,
I think it's still Look up Marilyn Manson wedding, Jodorowsky as the alchemist.
yeah.
Marilyn Manson, Jodorowsky alchemist
Yeah.
Okay.
wedding.
Okay, William, what do you think about the Kanye West and Marilyn Manson, the joint Donda? You know, the Donda concerts they've been throwing together.
I do. I think it's very strange.
Yeah.
I
It
think
is
it's
very, very
strange.
odd.
Dude, this is winning right here. Brian
burning
Warner
the
just
church.
won. Imagine being a guy named Brian from Ohio, you know, and you go to Florida
Right.
and you become Marilyn Manson, and then you get to live your dream. This is beautiful.
Yeah, they're friends, or you know, they have been friends. And
Pretty sure
actually,
that marriage
there's
didn't
a-
work out.
That's all.
there's a comment from Jodorowsky on Hollywood where he refers to it as Marilyn Manson's magnum opus. And so here I'm going to share the link to the, just, you know, for good measure. So yeah, this is a whole thing, is Hollywood and the Holy Mountain.
Yeah, this is an epic one. This is really
Hey,
good.
Andreas, when you have the chance, maybe you can go to my group and then look up this book, the Nostradamus prediction book. I made that post, and because David just brought up the magnum opus. There was a prediction about the discovery of the philosopher's
Where I go?
stone.
Where do I look?
Okay, if you scroll down, you're gonna see it. Let's see.
Somebody's playing
Just
Simon in the
stuff.
background. I don't know who that is, but I have that audio too.
I can't hear it. Anybody?
It's coming through my earphones very well. Guys, I
don't
hate
have
to
any
do this,
music
but I
on
got to
it.
run off. I got to go.
Okay.
Oh
I
yeah,
gotta go
yeah.
to my in-laws, so I apologize, but thanks for
Oh,
having
that's-
me. Let's do it
that's-
again soon.
That's fair. I know
was-
we thought it was gonna be an hour earlier. Is there I'm gonna show them your website. Lead them to WilliamRamseyInvestigates.com.
Yeah, you can look at a lot. I have a lot of visual stuff too. All my Children of the Beast documentary, Prophet of Evil, has a ton of Crowley pictures and things like that. You can see those on Vimeo. And then I have 5 books you can get through my website. And then I have about 750 episodes of conversations on a lot of this information on my podcast, William Ramsey Investigates. So you can
Fascinating stuff.
really bore yourself listening to me.
No, that's
blather
awesome.
on for hours. So anyway, I got to go.
Well, dude.
Thank you
William,
guys.
thank
Thanks
you so
having
much for
me
the time.
with you. Take care.
Yeah, let's do it again.
So I mean, we can keep going actually for a bit. I think there's a couple more points that we should point out. So we're looking at the Jodorowsky thing and the synchronicity. Do you guys think that there's a proliferation of this culture because it's like it suits the elite? Aleister Crowley is a spy originally, or is this because he's pretending it's this do what thou will? It's your freedom. It's your freedom of choice maximalism, as opposed to being oppressed by religious fanaticism or something. That do you think that is it just a ploy by the state to control us through a stick and carrot game, or was he trying to liberate humanity?
I'd say all of the above, give and take, depending on the context.
Okay.
So, like,
yeah.
Yeah, man. So like, yeah, our own inclinations are what they are, and along with the times and what we're capable of, you know, talk about the differences between when Crowley was around and where we are today, like, you know, the nature of contraceptives, everything that the way technology has become what it's become. It kind of like allows people to kind of, you know, relate to the world in entirely different ways than they used to. And so I don't know. I mean, there's definitely engineered consent and all of that maliciousness and from the powers that be and all the various secret, not so secret societies that tend to share the same symbol sets and all this kind of stuff. But I think to narrow it down to it's just this is always kind of to fall short. Like, you know, I'd say the same thing about Burning Man. It's like Burning Man's pretty much everything all at once. It's an absolute travesty, and at the same time, there's things that come out of that I don't, you know, I can't take an ultimate stance on.
To me, it's kind of cool
Well-
that like Manson came up, because in a way I always saw Manson as like a newer, like like a copycat of Crowley, like how like Crowley was brought up so super religious, and he clearly and obviously and naturally went totally the opposite way. And we're talking before American rebels existed. Like, we didn't understand this concept at all, and he was going against the grain of everything that the old world, the old way, everything that stood for, right? So it goes to an absolute extreme. It's definitely not where we should be, right? But he like kind of held that end of the spectrum almost.
Yeah, he's kind of like, in a weird way, he's like the Bruce Lee of European occultism, only in the sense that Bruce Lee devised his own system and pissed all the elders off with what they conceived was the way things were supposed to be. And so they felt it was very arrogant, where at the same time, it depends on where you're looking from, and it depends on how you're approaching it and all these other,
I talk about this a lot in terms of like even the stories from our oldest religions and everything, with like the fall and everything. It's always like this, a lot of the stories center around the child or the next generation going against the parents and leaving out into the world, and then inevitably like returning again. It's kind of like the hero's journey in a way, but we see that trope yeah, very like the prodigal son in a way. And like we see that played out in movies and everything constantly. And I think it's like Dan and I have talked about it on Roots of Creation and our other shows and stuff, how like it does feel like this ancient family feud that's playing out between an old way and a new way. And that is a concept that's fractal, of course, and it starts within us, and it's the revolution. It really is. It's weird to see it this way, and how it plays out in society on like the macro level, and how it's like, well, this revolution also is the new world order at the same time. David and I kind of touched on that last night a little bit too. It's just, there is no good and evil in these senses. There is, but it's not dualistic like we are so ingrained in seeing it.
Yeah.
If that
there's also like
sense.
there's also that problem where, from the bourgeoisie's perspective, they're like, if the proletariat had everything we had, they'd probably do the exact same stuff. So they're like, it's like, well, what would you do if you were in our position? Everyone kind of likes to idealize what they would do, but not everybody knows exactly what they would do if circumstances were such. So, and what is our inclination? And so that for me is the big thing with the Saudi star issue. Sorry, I speak Hebrew, but like, it's this kind of idea of like, we have this ingrained inclination. This is what we do. Yeah. Oh, and then to articulate it, like what the specific dynamics around that, like, is that articulation itself evil, or is that not just like what it is, even if it's not the ultimate reality? I mean, you're going to talk about ultimate reality, you're talking about Ein Sof, you're talking about what is beyond it all, and it's like, well, this is what we're dealing with. So if you're all stuck up in the muck, you might want to understand the muck that you're stuck in. Maybe that's helpful, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not helpful. Maybe that's like, I don't want to study war no more. I don't really know.
Right.
I wanted to also point out, like, so with A.A. Milne and his connection, let me jump to that. Where did
I
A.A.
know
Milne?
anything about him, man? This is all blowing my mind. I had no
Yeah,
idea.
What is the military connection with him exactly?
MI7B. So in MI7B, they were writing propaganda and they were interacting between so that's the tie-in there. But also Milne secret resting place, because his ashes were scattered. No one ever knew where he laid to rest. Super weird thing to happen. And finally some lady solved it, that she found where the ashes were spread and etc.
Oh, Brighton. Go back. Sorry.
Right.
Garden in Brighton. So that's where I saw the tree with the sign that says Mr. Sanders was Sonic's neighbor in Brighton.
There you go.
That was his buddy.
So underneath Mr. Sanders. And there was another thing I was gonna say about, because there's some crazy stuff in terms of abuse in his family and his son, and suicide, and burying the statue of Christopher Robin, because Christopher didn't like that the story existed about him, or that he was perpetuating.
Is it Robin because of the Irish? I think it's Irish. The story around the Robin that would pull the thorns out of Jesus's brow, and that's where he got his red breast. Like, it's some folklore take on the Robin. So it has a Christian association with Christopher Robin. Yeah.
Right, like
I believe that's in the
hyper-Gnostic.
Sync book. Somebody wrote
Yeah.
that in the Sync book somewhere. Yeah.
Most of these people didn't consider themselves Satanists; they considered themselves Gnostics. But if you
Right.
came from a family that thought anything was heresy and you would be a heretic no matter what, then you might as well just go all the way. I think that's kind of what ended up happening with Aleister Crowley. But with A.A. Milne, did I find what happened to the house? Because that was the thing. Like A.A. Milne house, Brian Jones, because that was.
And you know,
the
as
thing.
just to take it back to what you just said about Crowley, man, like as a metalhead, man, I remember wanting to scare people when I was younger because I was rejected. So, you know, and that's kind of an archetype in itself that Crowley was kind of a pioneer of, oddly enough. Teenage angst.
Yeah.
With $1 million.
Teenage angst is being manipulated against teenagers now. All the fucking, like, not that
Oh,
that
absolutely,
hasn't happened
yeah.
before, but the whole product thing, everything's to sell you a fucking product, even if it's
yeah.
medical, whatever, you know.
It feels like that's what's going on. It feels like it plays into the idea of do what thou wilt being a manipulation to control you. You know what I mean? Because
they got people to say to go with the program is the rebellion, and that is far out. That is some serious PR engineering there.
Yeah. I mean, so okay. Well, is there anything else you guys want to pull up before I start showing you guys's?
Oh, can you still try to go to my page and look up that, because I want to see what you guys think about this. Okay, if you go to my page and go look up Nostradamus.
Just search
you might have to
Nostradamus
scroll
here.
down quite a bit. So maybe just search Nostradamus.
Remind me, am I spelling that right? Nostradamus, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. This guy here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this came up on. We talked about this on Base AF a little bit.
No, not this post, not this one. Is that the only one that popped up?
No, there's this one too. If I do by
okay, maybe just scroll down there, because that's not the right
most recent. Okay, how about there?
Oh, that one. No, yeah. I was just below it. Yeah. Scroll down. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Okay. So can you go to the comment section and watch the video, because it was a snapshot from the video.
Comment section, snapshot video.
No, you're skipping the screen again. No, this is wrong. This is wrong post.
Not post. Okay.
Go back to the other one. Yeah.
The one this with guy. The book. Okay.
Oh no, I don't know why. Yeah. Okay. Click on the comment section there in the Nostradamus book. Yeah. If you see go up, you see there's a video link. Then go up. It should be at the top of the comments. I'm sorry, I didn't know it's so difficult to navigate.
I'll see it.
Keep going. Where is that video link?
You're on top comments. You might need to select all comments.
Oh, really? All comments.
Yeah.
Wow. Like they hide the video link. That's crazy. Video link here. Wow.
There it is.
Guys, they do that to you every time. That's nuts.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Click on that one. Click on the video link. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you turn on the sound?
I don't know if it'll play.
Look at this.
Can you hear it?
Right here. The first is that Queen Elizabeth II will die 2022 at the age of around 96. Let's see what else is for the rest of the world to happen. Fuck.
Chemical warfare.
Okay, but if you freeze it, you can see in the 2022, not just that Queen Elizabeth will die, also
I think we're fucked.
But also it also says that the philosopher's stone will be discovered at the end of the year. Okay,
nice.
I never took it as a physical thing, so shit, that's gonna shock me.
That'd be great.
Yeah, discovery of the philosopher's.
It might be like the way people live forever, though.
28. Have you guys seen
look at 2022? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Eddie.
Go to 2000. You see that 2022?
Yeah, and the Shiite Sunni war also interesting, because that would have made sense. I mean, so this is supposed to be from Nostradamus himself, or is this retranslated by some new dude?
This is a adaptation by the author. I forgot his name, but he died. Mario Reading. He died in 2017.
Okay.
And this is his interpretation of the quatrain.
Okay.
So, but I just wanted you to see that, because it was pretty shocking that It says that King Charles will be abdicated before he even taken the throne. So, but definitely the book predicted that she would die at age 96. It says exactly 96.
Have you guys seen this Twitter account? It's AIDEMLEO
Right, yeah.
XIDE. Queen Elizabeth II will die on September 8th, 2022, and he posted that on February 4th.
I don't remember the name of that account, but I did see it. Queen Elizabeth will die on September.
He's an author, or who is this?
He's just some Twitter account. His tag is just a question mark, but it's AIDEMLEOXIDE. And now, September 10th, now that I have your attention, I'll be broadcasting an incredibly important video that explains everything on September 16th, 2022 at 11 a.m. Central Time.
AIDEMXIDE.
AIDEMLEOXIDE. It should be just a question mark for his name. Yeah,
Okay.
first one with the static. Yeah.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
dude is weird. I don't know what it is, if it's an AI or if it's a bot.
Yeah,
or
he also
if it's a
predicted
person.
King,
What's up?
just like a schizo, but they predicted that King Charles will die on something 2026.
Yeah, I heard that. I didn't see that one, but yeah, I heard he did that too. So I don't know what this is or
Okay,
Okay,
if it's
bookmark that. Okay,
on.
take a screenshot.
Mhm.
Okay, wait till 2026, and then
Right.
you can have it confirmed that shit's
You
weird.
could just
as if you didn't
reshare
know
it.
already.
It's a time capsule.
Yeah, right.
Preserve the time capsule.
Right.
Makes sense though, because I feel like that the
Until you have to
kings of
pay to be on here.
transition into the new period, because like there has to be, the King Harry, right? Is that what we're going towards, or is it going to be King William? Was that? Forget. But we're gonna have a new
Whichever
king.
one doesn't, I don't know.
Well, because
No,
one's
well-
not allowed. I forget. Is Harry the one who abdicated
Harry's the
throne?
rebel one, right?
Right. So
Redhead.
King Will.
Yeah.
So King Will's coming, and that's going to
Yeah.
be the Will the Lionhearted.
I'm
or
more
something.
worried about King Harry.
Bill.
Yeah, that's the thing. King
I-
Harry's a whole other side of reality in Bermuda.
I think Harry's going to take over America. He's going to bankrupt
Whoa.
America and take over this country. I
Really?
think that's my prediction.
Don't
Oh,
they
wait.
already own us?
Can you explain?
Look at if you look at Biden, what he's doing right now. He's systematically crashing the. We are $31 trillion in debt as of today.
But it's Biden bucks anyway? They're not real dollars. It's okay.
Well, I
It's
know
going away
that's the
anyway.
problem. That the thing is that how long before they call off the system, the Federal Reserve, which essentially is a establishment of foreign bankers from England.
Did you see my Did you see my Nasara Jazara video the other day? Have you heard of Nasara? Go on. Yeah, right. So Nasara is the
Keep going.
National Economic Security and Recovery Act, which supposedly could have been killed for bringing up at some point. Who knows? But this was something that during the Bush administration was quenched or replaced with Dick Cheney doing exactly the same thing, but only to his friends. Okay, so the dove of oneness, et cetera, et cetera. But the idea of Nasara
Is that
and
the
just-
Oculus?
Yeah, right. No, but Nasara is the national version. Jasara is the geopolitical, like global version of Nasara. And, despite what some people think, there's a lot of truth to the idea. And what they were suggesting was like cancel all debts, full credit card and debt forgiveness, end of the IRS, return to constitutional law, return to gold-backed bimetallic currency.
It's the Jubilee.
It's the Jubilee. It's the debt
That's what we've been
Jubilee.
waiting for.
Yeah. So immediately the debt
It's the
Jubilee.
end
No
of
strings, I'm
Ball.
sure.
So what do you guys? What do you think?
Pay
is
my
the debt-
credit cards.
What do you think about the debt Jubilee? Since you bring it up.
What's replacing it? Like what's
Money
the
is debt.
incentive?
Money
Who's
is debt.
allowed these new amazing benefits? That's going to be controlled.
Right.
Perhaps.
This is the indicator for the Jewish people, what actually determines that the Messiah has in fact come. And
Based.
so the prophecy of Isaiah. So basically it's interpreted that not until all debt is forgiven and all slaves released and it's final, that's the indicator of that's happened. Now the Messiah is here. And so of course
Exciting
you're going to
times to
have
be alive.
Of course, you're going to have the
Wait.
Jubilee celebrations, the Silver Jubilee,
Jesus
and
kills all
all
the
this
money
crap
lenders.
where they just
Check under your
celebrate.
seats. You get an unblemished calf, and you get an
Right.
unblemished calf. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
they just get to celebrate
There's more.
what they already have, and they call that the Jubilee. It's extremely arrogant. So
Mm.
like it's up there with Bohemian Grove in a way, but it's all in the public eye. So when England wants to celebrate the Jubilee and do this whole little thing, what changes? What is it? There's nothing, but it's like that whole problem where you're projecting something symbolically and yet you don't see anything change in any fundamental way. And so yeah, it's ridiculous.
Dude,
it's funny. I'm reading the comments. Somebody just typed, let them eat cake." I had that sync today. Basically, this is like the time when, they're trying to. The rich have no idea what the poor people are going through with hyperinflation right now.
Dude, they're so excited though, because they're like, "Hey, Gesara, we don't. If for those of you who weren't entirely impressed with Nasara, here's global version, and it's going to be for you and me and for all of these people here, that are staring up at the sky from the 1984 remake that they're clearly making."
So okay, look, the cake thing. I'm sorry, but just to be clear. She never. So it was. That's the tabloids, right? We know that the tabloid said that. She may or may not have said that. She probably didn't. Tabloid said she did, but it wasn't even cake. Apparently, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe we need to look this up. But it was the crap under your pots that was referred to as cake. That was just like the crusty
theoretically,
black
she didn't
crap.
say any of that. What happened was like the Jacobins and the Freemasons who controlled the press were like making the royal family look worse and worse in public. And you had a nebbish king, and you had a pretty decent foreign lady who had come in, and Marie Antoinette was not local, so they could be like, "Hey, she doesn't even.
She's Austrian.
She's a displaced refugee. What are we doing here with the French, culture? That's easy to do.
Right, but at the same time, absolute decadence in Versailles. And that was just one big orgy with sugar, that was just. Yeah.
Marina Abramovic, her, the spirit cooking cake.
Well, I don't know Maria, but Marina. But.
but you know that when
like
they're cutting the cake, the human body cakes.
Yes,
that whole event is called "Let Them Eat Cake."
So let them eat themselves.
Well,
great.
Does this also relate to Neil Patrick Harris's Amy Winehouse cake too?
Ooh.
Have you ever heard about that one? Because that's an interesting
absolutely.
connection.
Was
Totally.
That was up in the news recently again. I can't remember why. It popped back up. Oh,
I have a recent Amy Winehouse sync, by the way.
For why? And then just let's really what really?
Yeah,
what he did.
He made a cake. This is a long time ago too.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm not even supposed to look at
right
his
after
cake.
right after she died. He held a party and had that cake. I want to say it might have been a Christmas cake or something like that.
Dang, Neil, that's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. And it's like he apologized eventually, but it was a Hollywood apology. You know what I mean? And
right.
Damn,
Doogie Howser. Well, he's Doogie Howser, so you could argue it's like a cadaver type, like.
Oh, right.
Nobody pretends that Neil Patrick
an MD
and rubber gloves.
Right.
Nobody pretends that guy's normal. I think we all know he's we're like, just please don't Andy Dick. That's all we ask you. Yeah.
Right. He wasn't actually like a genius. He just played one really well and convincingly on a show.
Yeah, he's charismatic. That's his deal. But that cake is like beyond just like a dead person.
He was
cake.
great in Matrix Revolutions. I just had to watch that over and over again. Just so good. Just kidding.
Yeah, he does have that.
I got halfway through and I turned it off.
I do want to watch it a second time. I still haven't, but I don't.
Did you play the video games? See, I couldn't follow it because I didn't play the game. So I was like, where the fuck is Morpheus? And then I find out, this is continuing from the video game left off.
I heard that afterwards. I already knew going in that it was going to be a different situation that I was used to because this ain't the Matrix I grew up with.
Well, that was the plan. So this is the thing, and the only defense I'm going to give for that movie. So like the Wachowski siblings, or no, sorry, sisters now, because they're both converse, transitioned. There's the word. They said, hey, they're going to make this movie, and this is in the movie itself. They're going to make it no matter what. They're going to make the video game. They say in the movie, no matter what, it's going to come out. People want it, and you have the opportunity to be a part of that or not. So
but the movie did come out
that way.
The Matrix everyone wanted came out, and it was called Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Right.
And we got this as kind of a decoy. It was like, the new Matrix, but it's like, no, the new Matrix is really over here.
I haven't seen that yet. My wife keeps telling me to watch the trailer.
So what's the rundown on this film?
Oh, it's just great.
Something about the multiverse, right? Something about division, more and more division, right?
Yeah, it's from the same guys that did Swiss Army Man and whatnot. It's like, but so it's got that kind of that.
It's kind of like the Wachowski, their film with Tom Hanks. What's it called? Cloud
Atlas.
I didn't know that was
Cloud Atlas. Yeah, it sounds like it's.
I see some parallels there to a degree.
But that's the psychedelic reincarnation.
It is the thing that we were waiting for. Like it happened at least. It just wasn't coming through the particular place we were hoping or expecting it from.
But then the Matrix is what movie the Wachowski sisters, what Lana Wachowski wanted to make. And that's all that the new Matrix was. It was like, well, if I have to make a movie called The Matrix, I'm going to set it in a whole different reality and make it about what I'm thinking about now. And they're not necessarily going to be what we're all into The Matrix. Lana House is not necessarily in The Matrix.
Right.
The creator died, right? That woman that
Sophia's dead.
Didn't she die? The woman who had the court case with them or whatever.
The one who lost miserably. That's all I heard.
I didn't know she was dead.
They settled.
Yeah.
Really? I thought there was a lot of I tried to dig as far as I could.
She said she didn't take any money.
So I tried. Am I spreading disinfo?
Yeah,
it's not that you're spreading disinfo. I think it's
Sophia
very
Stewart.
annoying how convoluted it is, because like there's a number of sources that I think would at the time would have been reputable for us, would be on her side of it. But then on the other end of it, more recently, I've seen things that I don't know. There's no real evidence of her winning.
I think it's more of a stretch
ever.
I don't think she's dead.
She's not dead. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Sorry, celebrity death.
But then also, have you guys ever read friggin' Grant Morrison's The Invisibles? I mean, that came out before The Matrix, and that is the fucking Matrix.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, if you go into the 50s and if you read the Congress, who wrote the Congress again? The Congress.
And The Invisibles is the Matrix, but there's no dress up. It's talking about government and secret societies, and there's no, metaphor. It's exactly what it is.
Stanislav Lem wrote a bunch of stuff in the early 20th century, Summa technology and things, all talking about the Matrix back in the early days. And he eventually Solaris, right, is what he's most known for. But the Congress is probably a better one. And in the modern version of the Congress, it's like a hyper animation where you can take drugs that turn you into the likeness of characters. So you're in a metaverse, and I mean, this is all from it shows how very quickly the technology progresses into you just take a drug instead of just having to put on a headset or something like that. And that's again 1918, I think, is when that comes out.
This is all just disassociation from the body. It's like a ritual against alchemy or something. It's weird.
Right.
Like, because they want to throw out the body and leave us thinking we're floating off into space and becoming superheroes in other dimensions. Instead of the importance of here and now in this body. Yeah.
Sorry.
If you guys look at it, okay, here's what I think is going on. We're facing imminent transhumanism, a major crossover right now with all the technology, Neuralink and the metaverse, and everything's coming together. The money's becoming fake. Everything's going binary. We're trying to get into where this is like there are two different directions. One is like people who believe in spirituality, who can break through out of this life and get to the next level above climb the Jacob's ladder to the next dimension, or go downwards, which is you want to. They're selling this another appeal. People who are scared about death. I don't want to die. William Shatner wants to live forever, and all those things that's all over the newspaper. People who are trying to go digital, where they say this is the mortality. That's the true mortality.
It's a hoodwink.
People who don't believe in God or don't believe in the out of the body experiences, that type of level of dimensionality, then those people would say, I'd rather die and get out of this container. But people who don't believe in that BS, they say, no, I want to be preserved in the microchip.
Right.
My whole consciousness, my memory.
Well, even if you think about
fear of death is
teleportation,
real.
Teleportation is like the
that's hell.
rebuilding. Teleportation is the rebuilding of you in another place, but without your soul, right? Because your soul's somewhere else. So that's really hard for a lot of people, because the idea that you are the symmetry that responds to reality, and reality takes as you, rather than you are this continuous thing. I think that's like a really hard spiritual conundrum for people.
Yeah, and the focus on the self and the deep self-realization. I mean, even some of the best teachings out there still are guilty of that self. The old like Buddhist way of escaping that idea. Like even the self is the illusion, that we're all kind of this part of this continuous thing, seeing it from perspectives that are vastly different, even from year to year. inside these
Right.
bodies. So
But then you look at the way that ego gets used in the various schools, and say
Mhm.
you look at the way that somebody like Alice Bailey uses ego, and then you look at the way somebody like Eckhart Tolle uses ego, and you look at the way somebody like Freud uses ego, and they're all worlds apart. And
Right.
so like, and then you'll have times where ego refers to like the sense of self, your I amness. And you have places where it's just no, the identification with mind forms as being all you are, not to say it's not a part of you, but to sum yourself up in this way and just to focus on that is, that is ego too. So it's like, it depends, are you talking about the
Can't get
psyche?
out.
Is that the ego? Like,
Right.
what are we
You
even
can't get
talking about?
out.
So it's like, define your terms. It's like people saying there is no God. There is a God. What the hell are we even talking about? Define your terms. And if you
Right.
can't define it, then I guess we don't need to argue about it, do we?
Hmm. We got a super chat from Matt Deemers. Thank you, super chatter from Canada. Never watch The Holy Mountain with a member of the AA unless you want to open a dimension from the black hole. Yeah, I mean, I feel like people that don't like to drink shouldn't watch that movie. No, I'm just kidding. That's a
Well,
consideration.
you don't want to do you don't want to be high on mushroom when you watch that thing. Your eyes gonna
You
start
don't?
bleeding.
I tried
Agree
to
to
show that with
disagree.
Marilyn Manson. It's to my friend when he was tripping balls on acid, and
Nice.
he could not hang. He made it about 5 minutes. I don't know if he made it through the head shaving part. He was just like, I'm out, dude. I can't.
Yeah, too much
It's like,
Clockwork Oranging of people. I know it's hard.
you know, so.
Well, we did it. We got through the 2 hours, guys. I want to say thanks
Too
again
much.
for coming to Synctank. Oh wait, Eddie, you had a thought. I don't want to take that away from you.
Oh no. I was just saying there's too much goat going on in Holy Mountain.
Oh yeah.
Any movie that has goat in it.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's like a Altered States. Similarly, I prefer the idea of being sober and while watching Altered States because there's just some flashy moments there where you're like, I don't know, I'd rather not. But let me pull up. Let me see where this is at. I've got Synchronous right here. Eddie, this is your group, guys. Go join Synchronous. We've got a couple new members, and there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. Not just this.
Contribute.
Yeah. I just showed you the YouTube that we're on because you can get the videos there for here, but also all kinds of interesting stuff to see. Hey, NASA to crash a $330 million spacecraft into asteroid to see if its impact can alter course. All kinds of fun things there connected to, because NASA always making up fun little stories there. And then also, okay, the Sync book. If you go to the Sync
Science,
book,
conspiracies, alchemy.
right? But if you go to thesyncbook.com and you go down the page to where is she? Oh, there she is. The Sync Flicks. You can find a lot of David's work on the Sync Flicks. We recommended Rebel Yell with Star 80 because only album and movie to come out the same day, the same year, at the same time. Good sync. But also the Holy Mountain Marilyn Manson Hollywood sync, because I think that's a pretty relevant synchronicity. So check this one out, guys. Any comments, David?
No, you said it better than I could. Yeah.
Based.
I'll be watching that one.
Right?
Yeah. Also, actually, could you show the? I don't know if it doesn't look like it's still open, but the beam there, 723, the Crowley, Morrison, back and forth. It's in the messages. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Let me jump to.
But yeah, so that's being there 723.blogspot.com actually. Oh, is it?
One of these somewhere, right? No, not this one.
Nope.
Not that one. Further up, maybe.
It was towards the beginning.
Oh, there we go. I got this. Boom. Yeah. Being there 723.blogspot.com. I can't read because my chat's over the window. Hold on. The new Creatures Magical Mystery. And here you can find the all the papers here. Crowley.
Yeah, so this is an epic poem that's basically a back and forth correspondence, so to speak, between Crowley and Jim Morrison with an American Prayer and how it works with Liber L.
Wow.
Legit. Where did I just go? There, there it is right there. So yeah, go to the Being There 723.blogspot. I'll put this in the description so people can find a link to that. That'll be the thing to do. And then the deepshare.wordpress.com or the deepshare.com, I think still bounces there.
I think it's just oh really? Yeah, that's weird.
But the deepshare.com.
Deepshare.com.
Yeah,
I haven't done shit with it. That's probably why it's doing that. I probably let my shit expire.
We had a conversation last night. Is that on there?
Not yet. No, but I will be putting that out very soon, either later this week or early next week.
You can definitely jump on the Deep Share Podcast YouTube channel, like and subscribe. Get yourself subscribed to that, and then
please.
there's a bunch of new videos, but also David's video. It's going to be epic. So can't wait.
Yeah, man. We went the distance. We did 2 hours and we covered a lot of stuff. I remember saying I wanted to cover 9/11 and then we covered everything. So it was good stuff. It was awesome.
David, yeah, he's like 9/11, but there's so many things to go.
Yeah.
Have you seen
right.
I'm sure you talked about it, but have you seen his video yet? His 7 hour.
I'm almost done with it now.
No shit.
Yeah. So when we got done talking, I told him I was gonna finish it, and I didn't finish it yet. But I only have like 2 hours left, so it's blowing.
Think about
my
what that
mind.
means. He's only had 2 hours left. That's how serious this is.
Yeah, crazy, right? It's 7 hours, man.
There you go. If you go to archive.org, you can get a copy of I'm Sorry, Cassandra, I Misunderstood Everything Predicts 9/11. I'll put a link to this also in the description. I think everyone should check this out. It's an amazing 7.5 hour compendium of everything you need to know. I mean, that's general enough to be true. I'm going to stick with that.
I like that.
All right, guys. Thanks for being there. And we'll do this again next week. So peace.